Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution, and we back with some Black history, Greek freak, divine nine, Boule, bootlicking, buck dancing, shoe shiners being exposed. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, revolution is a way of life, and revolution is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I got some revolutionary breakfast for y'all. Let's get into it.
Greek theater. Please welcome the fraternities and sororities of the National Pan-Hellenic Council, affectionately known by colleges and universities across the country as the Divine Nine. Collectively, they represent more than 100 years of unique brotherhood and sisterhood, with a rich history and legacy of service that stretches far beyond the college yard. Today, they are here to celebrate the freedom of Juneteenth. The Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, 1906. The Ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated,
These bozos.
The Brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, 1911.
And as we watch this, I want y'all to understand something. Everybody up here has been sexually assaulted, humiliated, treated like filth, like dirt, broken down, spit on, spanked, all of that. So all of this here, I guess this is when they build you up, because every person who done said they was part of these little fraternities, especially people on the stage, they know what humiliation is, sexual assault and shit like that.
Of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, 1911. The Ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, 1913. The Brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, 1914. The Ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, 1920. The Ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, 1922. The Brothers of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, 1963. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the National Pan-Hellenic Council, also known as the Divine Nine.
Represent
For more than a century, Black Greek organizations have made their voices heard on college campuses and in communities across the country.
Well, the founders of these organizations, they understood that the pathway forward for us was together through unity.
Moments like that,
Lies
by many in the Divine Nine, the 9 Black sororities and fraternities that comprise the National Pan-Hellenic Council. Vice President Kamala Harris has been outspoken about the impact her sorority.
You know, these people really disgust me, bro, because I never knew these people was keeping us oppressed, keeping us out of jobs. These people telling us blame the white man when every last one of these motherfuckers got the power to hire. They got the power to make motherfuckers millionaires, make you or break you. You got to be part of their little game to prosper in life. That's disgusting. But they telling you it's the white man.
Has had on her.
And along the way, you find people who help you become your true self. For me, that was my beloved Alpha Kappa Alpha sisters.
And don't be fooled. Though everyone may not always wear their letters or broadcast their acts of service.
That work behind the scenes is very serious, and they are committed. And it's some people that you wouldn't even know that are part of sororities or fraternities, that are part of very big decisions, very big just trends and monumental changes that are happening.
Because we have a love for our community.
As long as there is injustice, as long as there is a need to mentor,
As long as there is a need to uplift the African Americans, there is a need for Alpha Phi Alpha.
A challenge that many of us face when dealing with this world is how we accept many practices and mindsets that have been in our communities long before we were born or our parents or grandparents were even born. We accept many things that we feel are just part of our history and culture, and therefore these things shouldn't be ridiculed or questioned. What we do is engage in a practice of accepting many different things in ignorance, and that is an extremely dangerous habit. Moving in ignorance is one of the major reasons why people are so easily trapped in the matrix. We just accept things because it's what we know. We don't know much about it, but because they have history and wide validation, we just accept it. And the thing is that there are so many different parts of our modern lives that we just blindly accept, even though we really don't know much about them or what the risk or compromises of accepting them may be. I talk about many different topics in this ministry, and because people can be so confounded and distracted by race or skin color, many people often miss the point that I'm trying to make and the reason why I bring these subjects up. This subject right here, it's not about race, but it is about deceptions that run in a particular community that is defined by race. I did not set up the world and I did not make these divisions. So please do not fight against me for bringing these topics up. This particular subject is a major part of how Satan has been able to overcome the people in my community, as well as every other community in the world. And the thing is that if these things are not exposed, we allow Satan to run freely without exposure, and I'm not for it. So this topic must be exposed. If you feel it's not for you, or you can't find value out of it, then please move on. This is not a Black issue, but a worldwide issue. I promise you that there are many that have been exposed to this, and this information will do a great deal to bring clarity for many and help them gain the strength and wisdom to recognize the trappings of Satan and how he was allowed to enter into what we call the Black community in America. So with that out of the way, let me introduce you to this topic. As a majority, we have probably heard conspiracy theories about secret societies. There is no limit to the chatter about many groups like the Freemasons, the Bilderberg, the Jesuits, Skull and Bones, etc. Many people have heard of these groups, but most don't know a thing about them or if they really matter or not. And so this is what I've been trying to expose over the past couple of weeks. The point I'm making is that the fact that there are secret societies is not very secret. What's more secret is about what these groups actually believe in and why they exist in the first place. You see, we've heard about secret societies and we know that they exist. Whether everyone understands them, that's a different story altogether. But even with that understanding that secret societies exist, one thing that I don't think is well known is the existence of the Black secret societies. Now listen, I don't like referring to this segment of the population as Black people, but for time's sake, this is how I've been referring to the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade in America. People, they don't think about Black secret societies because it's well known that over the course of history in the United States, power has never been truly given to the Black community. This is why we saw the civil rights era, and we even know campaigns like the deceptive Black Lives Matter. So it kind of sounds odd to hear of Black secret societies because what is the deal with them? I mean, the normal question would be, if there is power in the other white secret societies, that should mean that there's power in the Black ones, right? I mean, the overall answer is really too deep to discuss, but the fact that I'm getting to is that the Black secret societies do exist, and it has been the primary way of access Satan has had in order to infiltrate the Black community in America. Because they are secret was a good reason why the infiltration was able to occur. Nobody knew certain men and women in the communities were compromised. So we look at their status and their rise based upon what we look as education or hard work, not realizing that they sold out in order to sell us out. And that is why understanding Prince Hall Freemasonry and the Black Boule were so important, because it introduces a different part of society that most people are not privy to understanding. But yet, they are a very influential part of our lives. Now, here's the thing.
Salute, family.
While those organizations are known for keeping secrets, and they are the source of power in the secular Black community, what goes very overlooked is the recruitment tool used for the secret societies like the Black Boule. In the Black community, the majority of us know about the Black collegiate Greek fraternities and sororities. I'm talking about the Alphas, the AKAs, the Kappas, Deltas, Omegas, etc. I mean, just recently, everybody was celebrating some pastor that pledged Omega Psi Phi. It was a big deal for him. Yeah, we know all about these Black Greek letter organizations, but like I said in the last video, we know very little about the first Black Greek fraternity, the Black Boule, Sigma Pi Phi. As I explained in the last video about them, Sigma Pi Phi is the first Black Greek fraternity in the country, the first pillar of Black history after Prince Hall Freemasonry in the Black community. But I guarantee if you surveyed a majority of Black Americans, they wouldn't be able to tell you much about this group. This is true because, again, like I was saying, they are a Black secret society and they hold much power in the Black community. Most of the prominent Black men in the Black community are Boule, and they are proud of it, which is why LeBron James tattooed their symbol on his body, right in plain sight. But because we operate in ignorance without knowledge, it is seen but not known or understood. Now, this video is not about the Boule, though. We just covered them. The thing is that in order for this secret society to function, to grow, and to operate, they needed a way of recruitment so they can continue to grow throughout our generations. And their most primary recruitment tool are the Black collegiate Greek fraternities that were formed after Sigma Pi Phi came into existence. You see, the Black Boule is postgraduate, after college. It's a professional organization that consists of already established and accomplished Negroes that were secretly a part of it. But the way they always kept their membership growing is they formed these minor Black collegiate Greek organizations that they always could gather and recruit the talent that they desired. For the most part, you won't find a Black Boule member that was not already a part of the Greek collegiate fraternities. Most people think these fraternities and sororities are just a part of our history. They feel that they were a way that Black people formed camaraderie in order to combat oppression and segregation. And don't get me wrong, they definitely are, but they are so much more than that. These organizations were established in order to ensure that Satan had access to the Black community in order to further his goals. If you or anyone you know is a part of the Greek fraternities and sororities, and you've taken oaths and performed their rituals and have not repented or denounced your participation with them, you have an extreme problem on your hands when you stand before the Most High. Some of you know this deep down inside, or some of you want to deny it because you still go to church and call on Jesus in your frat or sorority. So you probably want to ignore me and write me off saying, he doesn't know what he's talking about. If you actually listen to what I have to say in full, that thought will be proven wrong. It's time that we all understand the Black collegiate Greek fraternities and sororities known as the Divine Nine. Let's begin. Okay, so let's discuss the Divine Nine. The National Pan-Hellenic Council, Inc., NPHC, also referred to as the Divine Nine, is the umbrella organization housing Black Greek letter organizations. Its members' organizations include Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, and Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. Altogether, the council's membership exceeds 1.5 million individuals around the world. When you go into the history of these organizations, they introduce this to you by explaining the struggle. Basically, each of the 9 MPHC organizations evolved during a period when African Americans were being denied essential rights and privileges afforded to others. Racial isolation on predominantly white institution campuses created a need for African Americans to align themselves with other individuals sharing common goals and ideals. They explained that with the realization of such a need, the African American Greek letter organization movement took on the persona of a haven and outlet, which could foster brotherhood and sisterhood in the pursuit to bring about social change through the development of social programs that would create positive change for Black people and the country. And listen, I want to be clear. I do not want to discredit the racial oppression that they faced and the challenges that they had. But their solution to this problem brought about the demise of the Black community, not the uplifting of it. Throughout our history, when you know who we truly are, every time our ancestors chose to assimilate rather than attach to the Most High, they were conquered. This instance that we're talking about right now is no different. Now, we can debate over the opportunities these organizations created, the doors that they opened, the rights we have today because of their efforts. That's all good for debate, and I'm sure many will want to engage in that type of discussion. But for time's sake, let me make sure I identify the separation, the split, and the overall problem. You may not share this perspective, and if this is not important to you, then what I will be saying means nothing. From my side of the field, my perspective is one that is biblically based. I believe in the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yasharel. You know it better as Israel. My perspective has to do with putting Yahuwah first and submitting to him. I believe fully in him and preparing for his kingdom. I do not put the secular world and its secular goals over my pursuit to follow and obey him. My argument is that in order for a satanic new world order to grow, Satan needed to spread his doctrine and his traditions to every tribe, tongue, and nation in order to grow and influence, so that the world can begin to follow him more than they follow Yahuwah. The Black Americans, also called African Americans, who should be better known as Hebrews, but that is another topic for another day. Don't get lost in that point. There was a group of people within this community that were enticed to spread the light of Freemasonry within the Black community in order that the ways of the New World agenda was able to grow within. At the same time, after being slaves, an extremely God-fearing, church-going, conservative community was on the rise. These recruits were given status in their society so that they could have sway and influence. And you can see the evidence of this by looking at history, where at one time this community was very conservative in their values. And after they attached to the civil rights movement in their fight for racial equality, they attached themselves to liberal values that have completely changed the fabric of this community.
Hi, I'm Reverend Al Sharpton, an American for marriage equality. As a Baptist minister, I don't have the right to impose my beliefs on anyone else. So if committed gay and lesbian couples want to marry, that's their business. None of us should stand in their way. All of us must fight for what's fair and for what's right. Join me and the majority of Americans who support marriage equality.
Turning to moralist, lawless individuals. This was a deliberate agenda by Satan, and he used recruits in order to fulfill it. The problem is that because these organizations were built from the foundation of satanic principles, everything about them is tainted and off. Be clear, if this organization was not built around the foundation of Luciferian doctrine spreading false light, I would be all for a group of people who came together to build unity against oppression. Just like with Christmas. If Christmas wasn't a day that was made to celebrate the birth of the sun god, and they didn't tie the worship of our Messiah in with it, I would love a day to just give gifts and be together with family. What could be wrong with that? But because these things are built around false satanic foundations, there is an overall problem and it cannot be ignored. What I will present and show you is that the Divine Nine organizations are small recruitment tools for an overall satanic goal of a New World agenda. The Divine Nine organizations were built from the influence of Freemasonry and has its doctrine spread all throughout it. Those tied to these organizations who have taken oaths and performed their rituals have pledged their life to being against Yahuwah, the God of Israel. If you do not understand this statement, you might need to go back and understand Freemasonry and understand the God that they serve and whose light it is that they're spreading. And then once you understand that any organization that comes from that foundation is tainted, especially if they have incorporated many of the ways and practices from Freemasonry. So I'm going to break it all down. With all that said, let's go over the history. So in dealing with this, we must go back to the Boule. The creation of Sigma Pi Phi was on May 15th, 1904 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now the Alphas were founded December 4th, 1906 at Cornell University in Ithaca. It's important to note that the first two Black Greek fraternities were not started at HBCUs, which stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. They were started at predominantly white universities. And I guess that makes sense if they are joining together in order to develop unity amongst the racial challenges and barriers that they faced. But what also needs to be understood is that these founders of these Black Greek letter organizations were not inspired by African Americans trying to mark their place in the world. Greek letter organizations in America existed long before the Black Greek organization started. I don't think people really recognize that. You see, if you want to understand this subject, you need to understand the Greek letter fraternities that were established first. In the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry Southern Jurisdiction USA Journal, in the September/October 2016 edition, it has a very interesting piece about Greek organizations. Again, to be clear, this is a Freemason publication. The article is titled The Greek Rite, a survey of undergraduate fraternities founded by Masons. The article starts off like this. It would probably surprise many to know that quite a few Greek letter fraternities had their founding by Freemasons. This is worth exploring, if only because of the vast mystery and societal misconceptions that surround these fraternal organizations. The idea of a college fraternity had been established in 1750 with the formation of the Flat Hat Club, FHC, a secret society which was literary and social in nature, but not Greek. The FHC was the forerunner to fraternity life at the College of William and Mary, the second oldest college in the United States. FHC was founded on November 11th, 1750, at the Raleigh Tavern in Williamsburg, Virginia. The society was active from 1750 through the early 1770s, where membership dwindled. The first collegiate fraternity, Phi Beta Kappa, had all the characteristics of today's fraternities: a motto, a ritual, a badge, principles of high idealism, a bond of friendship and camaraderie, and an urge to share the organization's values through expansion to other campuses. These are also specific Masonic ideals and goals. Okay, so let's just put this in our understanding that the first Greek collegiate fraternity was Phi Beta Kappa. Now, for me, I actually heard of them, though at the time I knew little about them. You might have heard of them too if you watch programs like The Different World growing up.
My part, because it is 3.999 GPA and all around business as a student, is being inducted into the highest of honor societies. Phi Beta Kappa!
Our television shows have long been programming us to accept things we knew little about. In episode 25 of season 3, Dwayne Wade got inducted into Phi Beta Kappa. It was a big honor, so much that his mama, Patti LaBelle, came down to support him.
He couldn't come, but I wasn't about to miss my Phi Beta baby.
I later found out that this white fraternity had chapters at 3 HBCUs, Howard, Spelman, and Morehouse, I believe. What I'm saying is that we have been programmed to accept these organizations that we know little about. It's time that we at least become informed on what it is that we're accepting. The article goes on to explain that on December 5th, 1776, a group of undergraduate students attending the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, met informally in the Raleigh Tavern. They had decided to establish an organization that was unlike any other fraternal group on campus. Their organization would be dedicated to the promotion of friendship at its basis and benevolence and literature at its pillars. This group eventually will be named the Phi Beta Kappa Society, a fraternity that many credit with the tradition of naming American college societies after initials of secret Greek mottos, hence Greek letter fraternities. What many do not know, however, is that Phi Beta Kappa's origin had a strong Masonic influence. While the principal founder, John Heath himself, was not a Mason, as he was only 15 at the time, another co-founder, Thomas Smith, was a Mason. Smith belonged to Williamsburg Masonic Lodge before he joined Heath as a founding member of Phi Beta Kappa. Within the next year, 9 of the founding members will be raised as Master Masons, and over a dozen of the subsequent 50 members will be associated with both organizations in the years to come. Now, another article I found on another Masonic site, Tennessee Lodge of Research, and an article about Freemasonry and the development of Greek letter fraternities. It explains how Masonic symbolism and philosophy had a strong influence in the early development of many of the so-called Greek letter organizations, so commonly seen and accepted on college campuses throughout the United States. In some cases, the influence is little more than an association of ritual and secrecy, but in many cases, the relationships between Freemasonry and college fraternal organizations are strong and even enduring. Although not sanctioned by or directly connected to Freemasonry, Phi Beta Kappa patterned its initiations, oaths, and modes of proliferation after those of Freemasonry. 2 other founding members and a total of 10 early members of Phi Beta Kappa, like I said, were Freemasons. Similarities between Phi Beta Kappa and Freemasonry are easily seen. First, both organizations held their meetings within a shroud of secrecy. Freemasonry and Phi Beta Kappa both required new initiates to take voluntary oaths of fidelity. The oaths of Phi Beta Kappa mention the Holy Evangelist of Almighty God and a Supreme Being, both of which are commonly referenced in the Masonic Lodge ritual. The 3 Greek letters stood for Philosophia Kybernetes. I know I butchered that. Love of wisdom, the guide of life. A parallel to Freemasonry's reverence for light or knowledge. In the Phi Beta Kappa ritual, the founders named friendship, morality, and literature as essential characteristics. These are closely related to the principal tenets of Freemasonry. Okay, so let's be clear that the first Greek letter organization in America is influenced heavily by Freemasonry and holds many of its practices and ideals. This was that same organization shown in a different world that I mentioned earlier. Okay, now let's look up another Greek letter organization, Beta Theta Pi, also known as Beta. I bring them up because they will be referenced later when speaking on the alphas. Beta Theta Pi was founded on August 8th, 1839 at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. It was founded by students who had previously been members of the Aristotelian and Union literary societies, but had greater aspirations for their own organization. In their publication, Son of the Stars, a manual for new members of Beta Theta Pi 2020, it speaks on the founding of this fraternity. It first speaks on Phi Beta Kappa. Let me read. The founders of Phi Beta Kappa, the first Greek letter society, were required to be well-versed in Greek language, culture, and history. Consequently, they were aware of the central importance in Greek cultural history of an institution known as the Mysteries. The Mysteries were spiritual organizations to which only a select few were admitted for rites of initiation, for it was initiation that revealed the central teachings and philosophical wisdom of the ages. Another source, which many authorities believe inspired the structure and method of Phi Beta Kappa, was Freemasonry. Although the origin of Freemasonry is hotly debated, one interpretation suggests that Freemasonry is a latter-day effort to revive the methods and approach of the ancient mysteries. Like the mysteries, the candidate for initiation in Freemasonry passes through elaborate ceremonies where certain signs and symbols are revealed in an effort to open the participants' minds and imagination to a larger understanding of its essential nature, purpose in life, moral principles, and destiny. Okay, let's just cover that and put this in your foundation. These organizations chose Greek because they were taking part of the mystery religions. This is a part of paganism that goes back thousands of years, back to Egypt, further back to Samaria and Nimrod. I've spoken about this extensively. They chose this culture in order to secretly go back to the mystery religions in which only a select few were admitted to know and understand. Please make sure you get that. Let's keep reading though. Why the Greek language? It is clear that by utilizing the Greek language as the source of its hidden principles and values, Beta Theta Pi, too, relied upon the legacy of the ancient Greek mysteries and its approach to seeking wisdom and personal transformation through initiation. Founder John Riley Knox recollected, I came across an old book giving an account of some of the secret organizations of the Middle Ages. Their nightly vows and pledges were given, with some curious sketches of their inside working in their secret history. And I might also say, of course, very much interested in these ancient brotherhoods. The initiations he found were inspired by the medieval Knights Templar, who came to be a formative influence on modern Freemasonry. Thus, Beta Theta Pi, in its original constitution, drew inspiration from the mysteries, Knights Templar, and Freemasons. Okay, so this fraternity, Beta Theta Pi, also drew inspiration from what they call the mysteries, the Knights Templar, and Freemasonry. We'll note this for later. What I just read unpacked a whole lot just now, I know that. For many who have watched this channel over the years, I have explained why I reject the translation of the Hebrew Messiah's name into Greek. I've also explained why I reject Christianity because it's a mixture of the Hebrew scriptures with Greek philosophy. If you understand that these people have used this language of Greek to work in the occult, you should really understand how deep this world is and how wicked this system is. This is what Hellenization is, what I talked about in the Test of Christianity series. They are practicing the mysteries, which is just another word for the occult or the mystery religion of the pagans. This is witchcraft. And what I'm explaining is that the foundation of Greek letter organizations are started from this. This is what the foundation of these organizations are built on. And this is why they chose Greek. Now, I think it's important that I laid that foundation. You see, without understanding history, we often go and practice things that we don't know what they truly are. We just move through lack of understanding and ignorance. Before you ever talk to someone about their Black Greek letter fraternity, ask them, what was the first Greek letter collegiate fraternity? And what was the major influence they were inspired by? Most won't even know. But it's Phi Beta Kappa, and they were inspired by Masons. So these Greek letter organizations, these Black Greek letter organizations, what were they inspired by? They were following and inspired by the same organizations of those slave masters that enslaved their people. Let me not go too fast. Now, in that article, I want to go back to a point that they said. The article said, Phi Beta Kappa had all the characteristics of today's fraternities: a motto, a ritual, a badge, principles of high idealism, a bond of friendship and camaraderie, and an urge to share the organization's values through expansion to other campuses. These are also specific Masonic ideals and goals. Okay, so please note some of the Masonic ideals and goals, because when we explore the Black Greek fraternities and sororities, we will see that they were influenced by the same Masonic ideals. They have a motto, a ritual, a badge, principles of high idealism, and an urge to share the organization's values through expansion to other campuses. So just remember those ideals. And let me be clear that the Alphas, the Omegas, the Sigmas, 3 of the 4 male fraternities of the Divine Nine, are all mentioned in this magazine as being founded by Freemasonry. And that is not to say that Kappas are different. Please don't make that conclusion because it's wrong. The Kappas were started by Freemasons as well. They're just not on this publication. I'm just saying that the 3 are in these articles. But okay, let's not jump ahead. Now that the understanding of the first Greek letter organization is out of the way, let's go over the Alphas. Okay, we'll start back at the article. Alpha Phi Alpha was the first intercollegiate Greek letter fraternity that was established solely for African American men on the campus of Cornell University. In December 1905, principal founder Charles Poindexter met with 15 students, which included Vertner Tandy, a Prince Hall Mason from Lexington, Kentucky, and George B. Kelly, who was also active in Masonic circles and also an employee of Beta Theta Pi, in order to form an organization that developed leaders and promote brotherhood, along with advocacy for social issues throughout their communities. Okay, for clarity, the founders, who they call as the jewels of the fraternity, they are Henry Arthur Callis, Charles Henry Chapman, Eugene Kinkle Jones, George Biddle Kelly, Nathaniel Allison Murray, Robert Harold Ogle, and Vertner Woodson Tandy. In my search of each member, 2 of the 7 were confirmed Freemasons. Like I just read, Vertner Tandy, a Prince Hall Mason from Lexington, Kentucky, whose dad was the Grand Master of several lodges, and George Biddle Kelly was very active in Masonic circles. He served as First Master of the Mount Moriah Lodge number 25 in Troy, District Deputy Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of the State of New York, and was a 33rd degree Mason of Utica Consistory of Scottish Rites. He was all up in that. Okay, now let's also understand their influence. George Kelly, a founder, was an employee of Beta Theta Pi. If you remember, this was a Greek letter organization that I brought up earlier. So understand, he was already around the Greek letter organizations that were already established in this country. I think it's important to understand that. The Black Greek organizations, they are not pioneers. They are assimilators. They attached themselves to the ideas of the people who enslaved their ancestors. Being a part of a Black Greek organization is not being a part of an African organization. It is a European organization that Black men in this country assimilated into from European influence. The ones we call pillars and staples in the Black community are just an assimilated and rebranding of our oppressors. Imagine the irony and hypocrisy that these Black Greeks have, speaking of the horrors of our oppression and slavery. But in every instance, we see that they did all that they could to adapt and assimilate with their oppressors, accepting their witchcraft and their mystery religions. It is a repeat in history that goes back to the Book of Maccabees. Back during that period, the Hebrews died in order to preserve themselves, and they fought against these assimilated Greeks. Almost 2,000 years later, these same Hebrews are now sitting under these sellout Negroes learning how to assimilate. It's disgusting. We are repeating history. Okay, so 2 of the 7 founding members of the Alphas were Freemasons, and one of them was an employee of the Greek letter organization on his campus, Beta Theta Pi, which he was not able to be a member of, but he was able to learn about what they did and how they were structured. Now, I cannot say this for sure, and this is where I'm interjecting my own opinion, because this is not in the history books. But it's easy to see how these original Greek organizations influenced these young Black men to form their own group, and it would help them gain power and influence in the country. All these young Black men did was copy what they saw their oppressors do. They claimed they started these organizations because they were being denied essential rights and privileges afforded to them. That's the narrative, because racial isolation on predominantly white institution campuses created the need for African Americans to align themselves with other individuals sharing common goals and ideals. That's their narrative, but it's not true, because as we see, one of the founders of the Alphas worked for the white Greek organizations on their campus. The isolation was that they were not able to join their groups, so they created their own group. Just like the founder of Boule Minton said, he wanted to create an organization which would partake, in his own words, of the tenets of Skull and Bones at Yale and Phi Beta Kappa. Be clear, this was assimilation. People conformed and sold out, and they made it popular. But let's examine even more of what was a part of their influence. Do you know that the Alpha's first initiation was done in a Masonic hall? Yes, the organization held its first initiation in a Masonic lodge in Ithaca. In Ithaca, the hall served 3 different organizations: the Ithaca chapter of the Prince Hall Masons, the Grand United Order of the Odd Fellows, Red Men's Lodge. The legend has it that while in the Masonic lodge, they opened up the lockers and used various Masonic regalia that was found inside in order to enhance their own ritual. The fraternity also uses many Egyptian themes, such as the Great Sphinx of Giza in the regalia and their symbols. So, they performed their initiation in a Masonic lodge. They used Masonic regalia to enhance their own ritual. Oh, and yeah, they also performed a ritual. You remember we discussed earlier that this is a part of Masonic ideals and practices. They even used Masonic symbolism. Now listen, what we need to do is go into their rituals, but I will introduce that information in the next part. I want to lay the ground understanding of this first. What I want to make clear is that if you believe in the Bible and you love the God of Israel, Yahuwah, and you have accepted salvation through his son whom he sent, the Messiah, Yahusha, then you must repent and turn away from the oaths you have accepted and maybe all the influence you have received from them through these Divine 9 organizations. And in the next video, I'm going to present to you the why. You must not allow yourself to be swayed by these Masonic organizations that are about a completely different goal than what the Most High has declared. The God of Israel has said, I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 6. You see, he is a jealous God and does not want us to worship anyone or anything more than him. Yahusha, the Messiah, said, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. That's John chapter 8, verse 12. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. That's 1 John chapter 1, verse 6. And you see, it has been my intention to show you that these organizations, those initiated in them, have accepted and followed after another God. They have engaged in idolatry, they are walking in darkness, and they have binded themselves spiritually to the spirit or entity of the organization that they have pledged allegiance to. They have entangled themselves in with the enemy. The history itself should prove this fact, but I believe by the time we get to the rituals, this will all be made more clear. It may be hard for most of us to accept this if you have spent most of your life programmed by what they told you about Black history and achievement. Like if you grew up in the church without actually reading your Bible, it may be hard for you to understand this. But I assure you that once all this is presented, then it will be made abundantly and unambiguously clear to whoever is listening with intent to understand. I understand that there will be a majority that will defend and speak against what I'm about to present. But this is for those who truly love the God of the Bible and want to put him first. Those that want to follow him more than they follow this world. I recognize that there will be a segment of you that cannot put away the world and you want to have both. But you cannot. You have to make a choice on who you serve. I believe that if I at least give you enough detail, you can make an informed decision about what it is you have attached to or what it is you have been trusting and supporting. And after that information is presented, if you desire our Father's kingdom, you will denounce your attachment to these people and these organizations. You will repent and be forgiven while you still have time to do so. I just think about that pastor that pledged Omega Psi Phi and all these people are cheering for all this wickedness. People do not understand what it is they're attached to. Do not allow yourself to be driven and steered by these organizations leading the masses to the lake of fire. Come out of this wickedness and be set free. But choice is yours. But as I am telling everyone, in the end, you cannot say you were not told. Listen, please, make the right choice today. Repent and come out of Babylon. Be blessed.
I just want to say that nobody cares that you're denouncing. Like, stop posting about it. We do not care because you did not know Jesus before you joined your org. That's your problem. Okay. So sorry you didn't have that experience. You didn't know who God was. Happy that you found him now. And now you just, oh, it's demonic. It's demonic. Girl, we give back to the community. You're never going to make me feel bad and feel like I'm not doing God's work when I am literally giving back to my community. How is that demonic? Please let me know. Because y'all get so stuck on undergrad and the strolling and the parties and stuff. When you're a part of your org, that's a lifetime commitment. You think we doing that once we graduate? No. You get into the real business. You're giving back to your community. We're on committees to talk about different initiatives that we can create to make the community better. And you're going to make me feel bad like I'm doing demonic things because I want to get back to my community and be around like-minded people while doing it.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dr. R.A. Vernon, founder and senior pastor of the Word Church right here in the great city of Cleveland. And I'm super hyped about tonight, honestly. This is my Biblecast / podcast. Sometimes I teach straight Bible. Other times I deal with subjects. I just wrote a new book. I want to deal with a controversial, polemical subject, and that is all of this denouncing of the Divine Nine. The denouncing of the Divine Nine. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. And I thought it was time for you to hear a counter voice. The reason why I wanted to deal with this tonight is because, again, in the absence of a counter voice, all you have are the voices you are hearing. I have not seen any video as to why I will not denounce my fraternity. Maybe there's some there. And I'm prayerful that this will start a movement of the counter voice of the nearly 4 million of us who are perfectly fine being a part of the Divine Nine. So again, why are you doing this, Dr. Vernon? Well, there are a few reasons. I want to touch them tonight. There are a few reasons because to those who have denounced, implicit in your denunciation, implicit in your denouncing is that the rest of us should probably denounce too. To those of you who denounce because you feel there's some sort of demonic thing happening with the Divine Nine. Implicit, you can't deny this, implied. Maybe you didn't say this. Some of you did say this, but even if you didn't say it, implicit, implied in your denunciation or your denouncing is that the rest of us should denounce too, because somehow we're part of something demonic and dark and witches and warlocks, and some of the rhetoric I've heard has been very extreme. Well, in doing that, you touch something in R.A. Vernon that you just can't touch. And persons who know me know this. I am not all of that, but there are a few things I take very serious, nothing more than my relationship with Jesus Christ and the way in which I walk in front of my wife, my children, my congregation, the city of Cleveland, who looks to me for leadership. So what you're questioning is two things. You're questioning two things that I cannot have tonight. I have to touch it. You're questioning my spiritual intelligence. And more than that, you're questioning my spiritual integrity. Not just me, you're questioning the spiritual intelligence and spiritual integrity of multiple mega pastors and New Testament scholars and civil rights leaders. Truth be told, I'm a neo. I'm a young bruh in the frat. And so I could learn from so many. However, we both thought, and so many think, this needed to be touched by a pastor because you're dealing with spirituality, you're dealing with theology, you're dealing with demonology. And so you're questioning not only me, but hundreds and hundreds of pastors. And again, I'm not going to drop any names. I don't want anybody to catch any strays because of me. I don't have to drop names tonight. Here's my subject: why I will not denounce Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Why I will not denounce Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I think I need to pause right there parenthetically and say that tonight I speak for my fraternity, but I speak loosely for the entire Divine Nine. But for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, I speak dogmatically. I speak emphatically that I'm sure about what I'm talking about. Now, I have not read the rituals and been through every process of the other 8 members of the Divine Nine, but I want to have their back too, because I don't believe that any of them are worshiping any kind of demons or Greek gods or all of these things you're hearing that are simply not correct, certainly in Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Faith traditions are welcome, but the founder's original idea for the symbolism was not some kind of let's all stroll, get drunk, and get a bunch of booty. No, the founding idea was let's have symbolism of lasting monuments of Africa. All right, I'm not going to get into all the details. Pastor, give us more details. No, there's some stuff I'm going to save for when bros come through. I'm not going to mess up their process trying to prove stuff to people who aren't in the frat. No, these young brothers deserve some secrecy and some excitement about the process. So I'm not going to give any of that away tonight.
Well, if he won't, I will. And listen, I'm sorry about playing this man so long, but he is a perfect example of what I'm trying to display here. Now, I don't like it when people chop up my videos and don't provide full context of what I'm saying. So I do encourage you to go and watch his video in full after this video. I will link it to this video. Please watch it. After you watch what I have to say here, please go and listen to this man who is a major pastor of a mega church in Cleveland, Ohio. I think the church is called World Church. And understand that he represents what the Christian church is all over America, which is why he felt that he needed to speak on this subject. After you watch this video, please, I encourage you to go listen to this man in full as he requested and listen to who is gatekeeping our community, and you will see a clear example of how far the deception goes within Christianity and why I speak on it so intensely. So in part 3 of this Black History series, we dealt with understanding the history of the Black Greek letter organizations, also known as Divine Nine. This information is important to understand for many reasons. For one major reason, so many of us are tied to this world and are influenced by many things that we believe are just about the world moving towards progress. But the truth is that the majority of this world is influenced by people who are attached to the God of this world, Satan. And the history of how the Divine Nine was created should illustrate this clearly for you. But I assure you, it's much deeper than just the history. So what I want to do is go over what is not known. Yahusha says, "For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light." Luke chapter 8, verse 17. He also says, "For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known." Luke chapter 12, verse 2. You see, much of what these people have done in these Greek letter societies, they believe that it's going to be secret and people not truly know what it is that they have said and done at these altars. But they don't know that everything done in the dark will come to the light. Many of the rituals of these Greek societies have been brought out in the open, and people have shared their rituals. This is not knowledge that is being exposed by me. This information is readily available. I am just bringing it out in the open for clarity. So what we're going to do is go over some of the rituals and pledges done in the Black Greek letter organizations so that people finally have clarity about what has been done in the Black community. Let's begin. Okay, so in part 3, as we discussed the creation of the Black Greek organizations, we started with understanding that these Greek letter organizations are all influenced by Freemasonry and contain many Masonic ideals. Some of these Masonic ideals are having a motto, a ritual, a badge, principles of high idealism, and an urge to share the organization's values through expansion to other campuses. I want you to remember this as we go through their rituals, because as we go through them, you will see much of these Masonic ideals are all blended in. And you will see that though they pretend to be without influence and something for the Black community, they are very much tied to the oppressors of this world. These Black Greek letter organizations are just low-hanging fruit of Masonic organizations that are tools of recruitment for the Negro into the organizations of our oppressors. I want you to also think about the fact that throughout Black history in America, every time the Black community tried to organize and come together, it was always destroyed and put down. It's only these organizations with Masonic roots that were allowed to exist and to influence us.
Chicago fraternity men were the recipients of a goodwill party attended by 200 members. The host, Henry Allen Boyd of Nashville, Tennessee. Boyd, a financier, said he wanted to repay his Chicago fraternity brothers for their many courtesies to him when visiting their city during the last 25 years. Dr. Frank Plummer, oldest member of the Alpha Phi Alpha. Fraser T. Lane is among those signing the guest register. There were many out-of-town guests present. J.E. Oakes of Mississippi and Jack Atkins, Fort Huachuca. Henry Hammond and Major Homer Lewis, both of Chicago. There were many prominent speakers, but all talks were short. Brother Boyd, the host, gets thunderous applause.
You have to truly ask yourself, why? Why were they allowed to exist? And then after you understand the depths of Masonic influence, you then understand where this all will lead. And you can clearly understand the why. So let's continue discussing. When we ended part 3, we were speaking about the first fraternity of the Divine Nine. This was the Alphas. So we will discuss their rituals first.
Here's my subject: why I will not denounce Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Why I will not denounce Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Now, I have a copy of the ritual, which is a reprint from 1976. All these rituals I will be placing on my website so you can download them and read them for yourselves. The link is in the description box if it was not already emailed to you. Let's go over some of the things written in the rituals of the Alphas. Let me read you some of the things it says. The name Alpha Phi Alpha and the monogram AOA, as originally established, meant the first and leading brotherhood of the Ethiopians, but in addition now means the first and leading brotherhood of the Ethiopians to open its portal to the fellowship of mankind. We have chosen this name for the following reason. The word Ethiopians refer to a people who are among the oldest inhabitants of the earth, the fathers of Egyptian civilization and religious culture. Okay, let me be clear. What we are reading are people who either knowingly or unknowingly, it doesn't matter, they denounce their true heritage and attach to a nation of people that have nothing to do with them. And they have attached to their mystery religion, which is paganism. These men that created these organizations and the men that are recruited into them here in the United States, they are not Ethiopians. But because of their attachments to these organizations, the organizations have made these descendants of Israel pledge that they are Ethiopians, and there is straight judgment upon the Ethiopians. When Yahuwah, our Father, redeems Israel, he will hold the other nations in ransom for them. Yahuwah says, "For I am Yahuwah your Elohim, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I gave Egypt for your ransom, Ethiopia and Seba in your place." Isaiah chapter 43, verse 3. So when they say that they're Ethiopians, they are saying that they are not a part of the promises Yahuwah has made, and they want to be held under the judgment of the other nations that Yahuwah has prophesied he will bring. You see, the devil is cunning, having these men speak judgment against their own selves because they don't know scripture. Let me read some more. The Sphinx of Giza in Egypt, particularly its head, is our emblem. We have chosen it for the following reasons. Of these reasons, there's A, B, and C. Now, D says, the head of the Sphinx is of Ethiopian caste, thereby symbolizing the ancient and honored peoples of mankind. The Ethiopians were leaders of their day. Okay, now let's examine the deception, because so many of these alphas claim to be religious men of God who are believers in the Bible. Listen, regardless of if they know who they are or not, they have attached themselves to the Sphinx of Egypt, which in fact, when you understand this pagan mystery religion, the Sphinx represents Ra, a form of the sun god, which is the incarnation of the royal power and the protector of the temple doors. But in plain understanding, Ra is Lucifer. This is their symbol, and they have tied themselves to it. Now, in that, they also say that the Ethiopians were leaders of their day. And if you know history, you would know that they are talking about Cush, which goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel with Nimrod. Cush are the children of Ham who brought the world in rebellion at the Tower of Babel. And this is what they're claiming as leaders. These same men who are Christians are promoters of the rebellion at Babel, which the Masonic goals of today are directly linked to. But I'm not going to move too fast. Just understand that when they say that the Ethiopians were leaders of their time, they're talking about the rebellion at Babel. I'm going to be clear because with all this being presented, it can be overwhelming. And maybe you want to give these men the benefit of the doubt and say, no way that they knew that. Let's be clear. That's why I spent so much time in part 3 explaining the foundation, because these ideas of Freemasonry and the mystery religion would not be new to those who were Masons and were influenced by some and worked with other organizations who study the mystery religions too. So these men that created these rituals, they knew what they were doing, but they were fulfilling their purpose that Satan brought them into his fold in order to do. Now, in regards to the young men and women that make these pledges today, it does not matter whether they are fully aware of what they are doing or if they are aware of the spiritual ramifications. It does not matter. They are still doing it nonetheless. What they knew or didn't know, who cares? Do you think that it's really going to matter to Yahuwah when they stand before him knowing that they chose the symbol of Ra to represent them as Ethiopians instead of being set apart to Yahuwah? Everyone has the scriptures, and if they want to understand Yah, they can read the scriptures for themselves, and they can know if they're doing right or wrong by just reading the scriptures. Yahuwah said, I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. That's Exodus chapter 20, verse 2 and 3. Also, it says, if we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. That's 1 John chapter 1, verse 6. So standing in front of him with these charges against us, it's pretty scary, to say the least. It does not matter what you know or didn't. Our job is to choose Yahuwah first and make him the priority. And if we do this, we will not and cannot accept this type of influence. But let me keep reading because it's important. Remember when we talked about Freemason ideals and goals in part 3? We spoke about rituals. That's what we're reading right now. We spoke about their symbols. We just went over the Sphinx. They also talk about the motto, which the Alphas have as well. Their ritual says, we have adopted the motto, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all for the following reasons. Letter B says, in the dawn of civilization, the Ethiopians were widely held to be the special favorite of the gods. Letter C says, because we are heirs to the laudable traditions that cluster about the name Ethiopians. And D says, as Ethiopians were first and leaders in the brotherhood of nations in the world, so are we among the first college men in the modern world to bind ourselves together for the purpose of promoting culture, fellowship, and justice to all mankind. I mean, they're giving me so much to unpack, but let's just be clear about it. I spoke about whether they didn't know what they're doing. This section clearly shows that they do. They chose the Ethiopians because they feel the Ethiopians were widely held to be the special favorite of the gods. They knew what they are doing. You see, Bible 101 knows that we do not care about those other gods. And we just read the scripture not to put other gods before Yah. But it is written in their rituals that they clearly do. The Ethiopians was not a favorite of Yahuwah. He chose Israel. So they're obviously talking about a different God. Let's keep going though. You see, this whole ritual contains massive details. Let's look at the order of initiation. Section 1. The candidate shall be directed to report at a very definitive specified place. He shall be instructed to enter whether lighted or not. When he arrives, the place may apparently be deserted and darkened. As the candidate advances, he shall suddenly be accosted and mystically addressed. The oath of secrecy shall then be administered by a brother designated by the president. Section 2. The candidate shall be blindfolded, teaching that out of Alpha Phi Alpha, men walk or stumble through business or through life, blindly missing much which should be seen, used, and enjoyed. Section 11. The candidate shall kneel and eat the food prepared by the gods for Alpha Phi Alpha men, oysters or cold raw macaroni. Section 15. Brought to light. All members shall say, behold, behold, as the candidate's blindfold is withdrawn and he sees Alpha Phi Alpha, the light of the world, in large letters just over the altar. The presiding officer then reads the following from the 4th chapter of the Ephesians. Whatever. Section 17. A. Reading of the Constitution and bylaws. B. Reading of the chapter Constitution. C. Oath of allegiance. D. The new brothers shall be given the rap of admission and the password. Section 18. And the next regular meeting, the new brother shall be given the grip and the hailing signal, and the entire ritual shall be read to him. Oath of secrecy. They solemnly swear to keep absolutely secret the name and working of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. You see, all throughout this, we see the influence of Satan. None of this is harmless and only about uplifting the brothers in your community. I mean, think about this. If this was just about empowerment, why do they need to kneel at an altar and eat food prepared for the gods? Ask yourself, why do they have to swear an oath of secrecy? How many of your pastors do you know are alphas? Like I showed that clip about the man that said he's going to follow the science. He was an alpha.
We said we were going to follow the science, not our emotions. Everybody wanted to come to church, but we were going to follow the science, and we did just that.
Why are they swearing oaths of secrecy? As a matter of fact, why are they even taking oaths?
And of course, we are grateful as you are for Archon and Bishop Walter Scott Thomas Sr., pastor of the New Psalmist Baptist Church, and our gracious host today, along with your lovely First Lady, Patricia Thomas, and the larger church family of officers and members. Back in 1904, it did seem wise and good that men of ambition, refinement, and self-respect should seek the society of each other, both for mutual benefit and to be an example of a higher type of manhood. Today, in that same tradition, Sigma Pi Phi and its Northeast region comes to praise God, worshiping, caring, and sharing at the New Psalmist Baptist Church.
And if they did this earlier, before they came to know our Messiah, they should be denouncing all this stuff and rejecting it and telling everybody else to stay away from it. But instead, they use this as a badge of honor and teach us to be a part of it.
Why I will not denounce Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Why I will not denounce Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Yahusha says, again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to Yahuwah. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. That's Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 36. I mean, listen, we keep finding examples of rebellion against the word. I need this to be clear that there is nothing in the Bible that supports these organizations. The Bible, however, shows that these organizations are in direct opposition to the word of Yahuwah. So this was just the first Greek organization. The next organization that came after them went directly at the women. This is the AKAs, the Alpha Kappa Alphas, which was started January 15th, 1908 at Howard University. Now listen, this is not all going to be comprehensive. To go over each organization's history and their founders and whatnot would be exhausting, and in honesty, it does not matter. What matters is the structure of these organizations. You will see that they all have the same Masonic structure of the rituals, symbols, pledges, altars, and their oaths. Let's review some of what is stated in the AKA's ritual. Now, as they start, it says, introduction into membership of the Ivy Leaf Pledge Club must involve this pledging ceremony, and this pledging ceremony is a part of induction into full membership in Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Okay, so let's just first understand that they call themselves the Ivy Leaf Pledge Club. What's the significance of the Ivy Leaf? The Ivy Leaf has many occult and symbolic meanings, including its association with fertility, rebirth, and protection. Ivy is used in rituals for rebirth and the cycles of nature. Either way, that's their symbol. All sorority members participating in the ceremony are dressed in conservative white dresses. Candidates wear black dresses. Pantsuits are not acceptable for either the sorors or the candidates. The candidates assemble in the anteroom where they are questioned by the sentinel as to their desire to become pledges of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. All candidates are then conducted by the sentinel assembled. Soft music is played. The candidates stand in a semicircle around the table facing the basileus. Upon the table are two candle holders with pink and green candles and a pledge book before a centerpiece of tea roses and or a pot of ivy. So first thing, let me explain that in Greek mythology, the sentinel is considered the guardian or the watchman. So whoever is considered the guardian or watchman of the organization at that time, they question the pledges. I guess they do this to make sure that these people know what they're doing. Then they stand in a semicircle facing the basileus. The basileus to the Greeks refers to a king or emperor who is probably the president of the local chapter. The AKA's organizational structure, Supreme Basileus right now, is the Net Anthony Reed. Then there are subordinate basileus that follow. So they sing a song, they read scripture, which is probably why these young women don't feel that they're doing anything wrong. Then they say an occult poem, the ivy. This poem portrays the ivy as an occult symbol representing the hidden, unseen forces of nature. Then the basileus of the chapter speaks. We are committed to a policy of shared responsibility and cooperative effort between graduate and undergraduate sorors in the work of the sorority. We are concerned with the needs of all women and girls. We aim to maintain good working relationships with churches, schools, and social and civic agencies. We fulfill our obligations as member of the national organization by 1, participating in the Boule and in the national program, 2, assuming our share of responsibility for the support of the national work in the following ways. 3, following and improving practices recommended by the Directorate, which are 4, sending in such reports on our works as requested by the Directorate and Alpha Kappa Alpha office. Okay, so they participate in the Boule, which is not the same Boule as Sigma Pi Phi, but it is the periodic assembly of the total membership. That's all it means. But also note that they take orders from those at the top. There is a hierarchy in leadership here. Okay, let's keep going. After all that, the sorors pledge. They say they desire to become a loyal and faithful member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and they do pledge themselves to respect, obey, and defend the Constitution, the bylaws, and rituals of the organization, and to abide by all the rules and regulations of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And after they say their pledge, the sorors clasp hands in a circle formed around pledges and sing a sorority hymn. Candles are then extinguished, and the pledges march from the inner room in solemn music. And that's the end of the pledging ritual. Then there's the initiation ritual. The setting for the ceremony should be beautiful and solemn. The candidates and sorors must be properly dressed. All necessary items for the ceremony should be placed in at least 1/2 hour prior to the time of the ceremony. Items needed are a table with white tablecloth, large white candle entwined with ivy, white candles, pen, record book, coat of arms, ivy. Ivy is apparently very important. So get this though, they have an altar. They are dealing in a spiritual realm. Let's continue though. 1. Soror should know the national hymn, pledge, the initiation hymn, and the demonstrations of signs, the handshakes and identifications. 2. Sorors should stand during each degree while candidates proceed through them. The candidates, 1. Wear black dress for first degree. 2. Wear white dress for remaining degrees. 3. Know national hymn, initiation hymn, and pledge. So when you see these pledges and they're wearing these different dresses, now you know what it means. In the actual performance of the initiation ritual, it is suggested that the dean of pledges or the membership chair lady serve as the pilot. In this role, she will provide an atmosphere of tranquility and calmness for the probates. In their degrees, the basilius says a prayer in which they all repeat, which partially says, awaken with them holy desires, inspire them with a new enthusiasm of the revered founders, and grant them wisdom and strength that they may render service to all mankind. In Jesus' name, they say, they pray. Amen. Whatever. They end their occultic prayer in Jesus' name, which I'm sure makes them feel that there is nothing wrong with what they're doing, as they pray to God to have the desires of their founders. Which is why I'm absolutely positive they love the Greek name of the Messiah, because they can do whatever foolishness they want with it. They can't do that to his true name. They don't do that to his true name. Anyway, let's keep going. After all that, the organization checks for obedience. The basilius to the candidate, are you willing to be submissive in every way to subjugate yourself to the highest authority? The pilot to the candidates, repeat after me, I am. Candidates, I am. Basilius, what proof have you? Pilot to the candidates, repeat after me, I show my submission by kneeling. And then the candidates kneel a few minutes, nothing but silence prevails. The basilius, candidates, arise. The pilot and sorors lead the candidates in a line in a winding way. The sponsor of each candidate should be at her side. The basilius repeats this phrase 7 times. Life is a maze, an intricate through which we must wander days, whatever. Candidates are then taken to the anteroom after the 7th intonation. Pilot, candidates, are you willing to enter deeper into the mysteries of our organization? If so, state after me, I am. The candidates, they say it. Pilot knocks at the door. Then they say a whole lot more that I'm not going to repeat, and they end with this. Their pledge to thee, O Alpha Kappa Alpha, they pledge their hearts, their minds, their strength to foster their teachings, obey their laws, and make them supreme in service to all mankind. O Alpha Kappa Alpha, they greet thee. I don't know who they think they're pledging to, but it's not our Father. And there's a whole bunch in all that. Now, here's the question. What does Yahusha say is the most important commandment? Remember, Yahusha said to him, you shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. But these women have pledged their hearts, minds, and strength to the organization, not to Yahuwah, but to the organization. Yahuwah wants your whole heart, soul, and mind, and they have made sure that they have given some of it to the organization. They have pledged that they will not do what our Father desires for us to do. Understand, and I do not say this lightly, but you must understand, all these people, they will all be rejected by him if they do not repent and denounce what they have done. Make no mistake about it. They will be rejected. Let's move on. The next organization on the list is Kappa Alpha Psi. On January 5th, 1911, this group birthed a new fraternity on the campus of Indiana University called Kappa Alpha Nu, which attained national recognition on May 15th, 1911. It's one of the few Black Greek letter organizations that emerged among Black students at predominantly white universities. The founder, Elder Watson Diggs, was a Prince Hall Masonic member of Central Lodge Number 1 in Indianapolis, Indiana, as noted on the website of the Masonic Lodge under the term Kappa Alpha Psi. It says, the Kappa Alpha Psi connection. Central Lodge Number 1 has been a rule and guide for the greater Indianapolis area since our arrival in September of 1856. The members of our bond have been the leaders in all fields of achievement within the city, let alone the country. Our members have always reached for the stars. As such, we have been blessed to name amongst our roles several outstanding members of the Black Greek letter community. Of these, Central Lodge Number 1 has enjoyed a relationship with Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Central Lodge has always had a reputation of being one of the most difficult fraternities to join. The reason is simple. Central Lodge typically requires a record of achievement and service prior to applying for membership. As a result, since our arrival to Indiana in 1856, Central has always attained a smaller yet high caliber level of membership. Such is the case with Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Two of the founders of the fraternity, Elder Watson Diggs and Ezra Alexander, as well as the first two grand polemarchs of Kappa Alpha Psi, Diggs and Irvin Armstrong, were initiated into Central. Alexander was also a member of Constantine Consistory 25 and a Shriner within Persian Temple 46, also in Indianapolis, Indiana. Central Lodge is proud of the achievements of our members. We continue this tradition with Kappa today. As recently, Kappa brother and past master William Wilson, 33rd, served as Grand Worthy Patron of Order of Eastern Star, Indiana. As the record of Kappa brothers are unearthed in our vast rolls, we will continue to share that treasure with the viewing public. Okay, and so this is right off the Prince Hall Mason website. So let's be clear that Kappa Alpha Psi was created by Freemasons as well. You cannot get past the Masonic foundation in our community. They mask it and cover it up in community service and success by its members, but there are secret occult rituals and symbolism beneath it all. Let's read about their rituals. Now, in the ritual from 1968, it says, and now due to copyrights, this is not verbatim, it says, but it's paraphrased, containing the key elements of this initiation ritual. In the procedure of the formal meeting, step 2 states, the sacred Delphine shrine, the altar of Kappa Alpha Psi, is placed in the center of the room. It is covered with a crimson and cream cover. On it, the Holy Bible is open to Proverbs chapter 3. Number 3, each officer wears the insignia of his office. So they do this ritual in front of an altar and a shrine. So what is the sacred Delphine shrine? The Delphic shrine is an ancient religious sanctuary dedicated to the Greek god Apollo. Yes, the god of the Kappas is the Greek god Apollo, the sun god. In their opening ceremony, they start with reading the Bible. All members say they seek inspiration and guidance from the great God of all the earth and the Holy Bible, which he has given unto men as a lamp unto their pathway. Then the vice polemarch reads the first 10 verses of the chapter of Proverbs. After 2 raps of the polemarch, all recite the Lord's Prayer, the great purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi, achievement through fraternity, knowledge, and fidelity, and the creed. After a few more items on the agenda, they have the beginning of the initiatory ceremony. The polemarch then makes the candidates kneel in front of the altar and give the oath. They, in the presence of the Almighty and the members of Kappa Alpha Psi here assembled, and at the sacred Delphic shrine, they solemnly swear that they will keep secret forever all things that may transpire or be revealed to them during their initiation. Okay, so these men kneel before an altar of Apollo, but make an oath in the presence of who they call the Almighty God. Now, if you understand Yahuwah, you understand this is not him who they're making an oath to. None of this has anything to do with him. They are speaking to the God of this world. Then they continue on in the ritual. And in this ritual, the initiate is led to take part in a ritual that puts them in a position to be a replacement of other Greeks that were supposed to be a sacrifice to the pagan Greek god Ares. When they accept themselves to be this replacement, they are then sent to another room to be tortured. Then they go through a number of tortures. After the tortures, the priest enters and inquires whether all is in readiness for the sacrifice. He lights a small red light and calls upon the god Ares to show his approval by another red light. However, a blue light is switched on, All members react horrified, and the lieutenant strategist cries out that the gods show disapproval with the sacrifice. Then the candidate is allowed to take the oath of allegiance and duly received as a member. The candidate is led to the altar, made to kneel and place his hand on the Bible, and made to repeat the oath of allegiance, stating, "They, in the presence of the Almighty and the members of Kappa Alpha Psi, there assembled, and at the sacred Delphic shrine, do hereby solemnly declare their unswerving allegiance to the grand fraternity of Kappa Alpha Psi, and do solemnly swear or affirm that they will ever respect, obey, and defend its constitution and all the regulations, emblems, and ritualistic work thereunto appertaining." You see, this is just another occult ritual that means a great deal in the spiritual realm, that those in the occult and are initiated in the mystery religions, they know the meaning of it. This is all a big deal spiritually. If you read all of this, none of this is inconsequential. Now, this was a ritual from the late 60s. This is the spiritual foundation that has been in the Black community for decades. All these men and women walking around being proud with their Greek letters, dancing around, they should be ashamed to be recognized and want us to look at them as a part of something great and something that uplifted our community. But they are all tools that rejected their heritage. And in order to be accepted into this fake society, they initiated themselves into occult rituals that are all about serving the God of this world. I reject these people completely. I recently did a series about testing Christianity, and I went over the Hellenization and merging of Greek philosophy and culture into Christianity. So many people wanted to fight for the culture of the Greeks and their influence in Christianity, when if you actually understand the Greeks, this ancient culture goes back to Satan and the mystery religions that go back to the Tower of Babel and Nimrod and Samaria. These people are all pledging to take part in all that. And we have so many pastors that are a part of this. For instance, what's his name? Jamal Bryant, a known Kappa. He shows his pride in being a Kappa all the time. He does a whole bunch of stuff claiming the Kappas, yet he's taken part of all these rituals and he does not denounce them. He supports this. And this is the kind of behavior that's supported in our community in the Black church. This is what is in the Black church. Let's continue though. We'll cover one more frat and then finish these up in the last video. We will cover Omega Psi Phi. In the Freemason publication, the Scottish Rite Journal, I went over it in part 3. In the article, The Greek Rite, a survey of undergraduate fraternities founded by Masons, they cover Omega Psi Phi as well as the Alphas and the Sigmas. In regards to the Omegas, they write, the principal founder of this fraternity was Edgar Amos Love, a Prince Hall Freemason who was also a founding member of Corinthian Lodge number 68 in Washington, D.C. The organization was established on November 17, 1911 at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Omega Psi Phi is another predominantly African-American fraternity and the first to be founded on the campus of a historically Black university. Today, it has over 250 chapters across the United States. Some notable members of Omega Psi Phi include Bill Cosby, Langston Hughes, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Michael Jordan. These are the Q Dogs. It's the same frat that pastor recently pledged to. They all go through the same ritual stuff. Let's go through the ritual. In the formal ceremony, like all the other initiations of these organizations, there's an altar. It says, therein shall be placed a table covered with a white cloth, upon which table shall be placed 4 candles arranged in quadrangular form. Within this quadrangle of light shall be placed the helmet, escutcheon, crossed swords, and glove of mail, as they appear on the seal of the fraternity. All other furniture shall be removed, and this room kept in utter darkness, except for such light as may be ordered by the district representative for the performance of his duty. Absolute silence shall be observed within this room throughout any part of the ceremony carried out therein. Then they go through some words, and after a moment's pause, the Basilius shall distinctly say, swing ye open, O gates of Omega. Admit these, their friends, but let them take heed upon what they enter. Let them give listening ears to all that may be said and done, and seal within their bosoms the sacredness of the temple of Omega. I rebuke that. The members shall now proceed to exemplify the test. Administering them to the neophytes individually, they are as follows. 1, discretion, 2, faith, 3, obedience, 4, endurance, 5, courage. And they go through the test of each of these, and at the end of it, the dialogue goes, Basilius, whence come ye, my friends, clothed as ye be, and accompanied by these true and tried brothers? The neophyte commanded, from the outer chamber of darkness into the whatever of light of Omega. Basilius, what come you here to do? Neophyte commanded, to seek further knowledge of Omega, to learn traditions, and to swear allegiance to her cause. Basilius, brothers, have you satisfied Omega beyond reasonable doubt that these friends have met her rigid requirements? The neophytes, yeah. Basilius, what further have they to offer for this wonderful privilege now asked of Omega? Neophyte commanded, their lives, which they hereby dedicate to the service of Omega. They're offering their lives. Basilius, seeing now, my friends, that you have been faithful in little things, that in your state of darkness, you have placed implicit confidence in these brothers, that you crave the further mysteries of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Let them together invoke the aid of the Supreme of the universe. Come magnify their Lord with them, and with them exalt his name. Brother Chaplain, lead us in prayer. And after they say all that wickedness, all shall devoutly kneel during the prayer. And at the end of the prayer, the members shall say in unison, Amen. And they say, Thy will be done, blah, blah, blah. Then they move to take the oath. They say the taking of this oath is not a matter of mere formality, but a far more serious transaction. It is a centralizing of all the higher forces within one upon a great principle.
Revolutionary salute to our brother LRP for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is real life. Appreciate the love, family. Salute to you.
And the presence of their God, the keeping of which immediately decides the man. Now, inasmuch as you have complied with all the necessary requisites up to this point, and as much as you have concurred with the ideals upon which this organization was founded, and have evidenced no spirit other than the highest manhood, I shall ask you to kneel upon both your knees, place your left hand upon the Holy Bible, which I here give you, raise your right hand toward the heavens, and repeat that oath after them. And they pledge allegiance to Omega Psi Phi. This is real wickedness. My chest is hurting just reading this stuff. Listen, I'm just going to stop it right there. For time's sake, I will pick up on these organizations later, Yah willing. I want this to be clear as possible that these Greek letter organizations are an introduction into witchcraft and the occult in the Black community. This is why many people that I know that have pledged these fraternities, they hate Yah. They can't even see themselves worshiping him. And it's why so much wickedness is able to be in our community. If you want to understand how spiritual wickedness got into the Black community, it's because of these Prince Hall Masons creating these small-time Masonic organizations. They want us to respect them when every last one of them should reject them. We should be rejecting these people. Our oppressors use these tools to bring wickedness into our community that has just been defeating us. We rejected the Most High. We never turned to him. We turned our back to him. And as we keep turning our back to the Most High rejects us, and he keeps us cursed and living in wickedness. And we just keep running a cycle of rebellion over and over and over because of these people right here. This is where it all starts. The worst part is that these people actually want us to respect them, especially these churches that have these pastors and leadership that have done these rituals, but yet they try to lead worship of our Father.
Welcome to Ellenwood United Presbyterian Church. We are so glad you are here.
At Elmwood, we desire to be a healthy, vibrant, spirit-led church that seeks to engage the communities we serve, equip every believer for ministry, and empower a new generation of Christians for service in the church and the world.
We will accomplish this by empowering our communities, engaging congregants through an extravagant welcome and transformative worship, engaging deeper discipleship for youth and adults, expanding leader recruitment and training, and embracing a culture of accountability.
Whether you are worshiping live or virtually, from wherever in the world you may view this service, it is our prayer that you are made better by your experience at Elmwood today.
Come, let us worship God.
I am tired of our people respecting sellouts. You can see why there's so much confusion in the churches and no one knows who they worship. People that have taken these oaths and performed these rituals have declared enmity with themselves and Yahuwah. If you know our Father and you know his word, you will know that nothing about what they're doing is about serving him. Who is it that you think that they're serving? The things that they don't even have to hide any of this. They do this right in our faces. Like I keep showing, there was a pastor that pledged Omega and did a whole coming out ceremony right before the people in Pride. If people really understood how wicked this was, if he was doing it, he would do it in darkness, not even telling anyone. But because we don't know what they're doing in secret, they do this right in front of our faces and they tell us and we just accept them.
Holy Spirit told me that the month of February, that it would be our month to heal. I command you to heal physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically.
Here's the thing. All of our heroes in Black America have some sort of attachment with this stuff. It's wickedness. These men and women are on the opposite side of your faith, regardless of what they want to say. They absolutely are going to be rejected by our Father if they don't repent. And that is why there has been such a major movement within these Greek societies recently, with men and women denouncing their membership and their affiliation with these societies. Every last one of these brothers and sisters that are denouncing this and speaking up against it, I applaud them for their strength and their courage and their conviction to turn to Yah. Everyone else, you're rejected. We need to normalize calling these people what they are. They're tools and they're being used. They should feel ashamed of what they have done. All these organizations are tied together. And as I went through this history, it is all influenced by Freemasonry and the mystery religions. I don't care how many of them go to church, how many of them call on Jesus and speak spiritually. They have made oaths, real oaths at altars, and pledged themselves to these organizations. They need to be spoken to, and this reality needs to be given to them, regardless of how much they want to deny it. They know the oaths that they took, and if they are in denial, you're going to have to pray for them. We cannot attach ourselves to this witchcraft and expect Yahweh to accept us. And I personally think deep down, each one knows about the oaths that they took, and they know that they're wrong. Some of them feel trapped. Some of them feel that there's nothing else that they can do. Some of them are scared to lose their friends that they've built all their life. It's just a lot that they're attached to. And so they just choose to stay in the wickedness rather than fight against it. Many of these people know. And that's why many of them are so heavy in the church and so big on speaking against oppression. I just saw the Prince Hall Mason, Alpha Phi Alpha, Roland Martin speaking about what we need to be doing for the Black community.
There is literally, as we speak, an entire focus to gut every single civil right and economic gain that we have had since 1964 because they are pissed with those three acts. They're pissed with the Brown vs. Board of Education Act. You have voucher bills that are being pushed in Texas and Tennessee and other places to gut public education. What we have to understand is there is a vicious assault to completely defund Black America.
This man's a sellout. Why would we listen to this man? These people are so emboldened by the strength of these organizations within Black culture that they're also torn. These people are compromised. None of that church or religious stuff matters if they're still tied to these organizations. And if your pastor is a part of this, you have been in the wrong church for a long period of time, and this person is steering you straight to hell. If they keep their letters and have not denounced their oaths, they are tied to the God of this world, not our Father in heaven. This is why repentance is so important. The Bible says, test all things, hold fast what is good, abstain from every form of evil. That's 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 21 and 22. And if through this video you can't see the evil that is attached to all of this, you're deceiving yourself. No man can have two masters. And some of you are so double-minded that you truly think that you can. Listen, I went to great lengths and research to tie all this up so that there could be no confusion. I don't care about your ego and I don't care about your pride. If you love Yahuwah, you need to understand him and his will for us. And you need to serve him more than these organizations you might have tied your life to, as well as your children. Because many of you, you pass this wickedness on to your children so they can follow in your footsteps. For all true believers, I charge you all to be unambiguous with those that you know that are in these organizations, but also claim to be saved believers. Call out the hypocrisy and help them in love, not anger or strife. Let them see the error in their ways and help them repent from it, but do not coddle or enable them. This is some very serious stuff. We need to make Yahuwah the priority, not everyone's feelings or their ego. We are preparing ourselves for the kingdom. And let me absolutely be clear that no, I don't believe that everyone that has joined these frats or sororities, they're just evil in their heart. Far from it. Most joined because they want to be part of something, and many were just following their parents. Many of them did this in college, and they didn't know anything when they were doing this. Some things we do when we're children and we're young, we don't know anything about it, and we just do these things, especially if they're adding Jesus in their oaths and they're saying scriptures in their oaths and their rituals. You just think that this is what people do because so many people are a part of it. So no, I don't think that people know that they're actually really taking a part in the occult. I know some people know, but not everyone. Most people, they have joined these organizations in ignorance. Their intentions were not directly against Yahuwah, knowingly in their hearts. But that does not matter. They are compromised, and they have made pledges against the God of the Bible in order for them to be accepted by this world. They have chosen this world over Yahuwah, and the devil made them pledge their allegiance and take an oath to it. Too many people are playing games with their soul, and we're at the end of all things here. All this needs to come out and be made clear. I would not take these risks, but they are yours to take. You have now been given the information about these Greek letter organizations and where this influence comes from. And now it's up to you to decide if the organization that you pledged to is worth being on the opposite side of Yahuwah. But I will tell you like this from Joshua chapter 24, verses 14 and 15. Now, therefore, fear Yahuwah, serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the river and in Egypt. Serve Yahuwah. And if it seems evil to you to serve Yahuwah, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your father served that were on the side of the river, or the God of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve Yahuwah. Listen, you decide who it is you'll serve, and you be prepared to stand on it. This is not a game. Be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah.
Today on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. Since this we're getting to the end of Black History Month, we're going to continue our series on some things in Black history. So we're going to ask this big question, and I know you guys are going to love this. Was Rosa Parks a plant? Yeah, we're going to talk about that today on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, let's get this thing started. You know, Napoleon said history is lies agreed upon. Man, he never made a truer statement than that. Because they have really taken the history of Black people and they've made it mythology more than anything. And they've sanitized it to a point where we can't correct our present situation because our history is mythology. It's almost like you running out of gas in your car and you don't know anything about a car, right? You don't know anything about it. And the person is telling you that the reason why your car is stopping is because the fairies in the tank are angry and you have to pray and make them happy again and they'll be in your car start running. And you believe that and you start praying to the fairies in your tank, but your car never runs again because that's a lie. It needs gas. That's the truth. The sanitized version of it, the mythologized version of why your car is not running, doesn't help you at all. That's the problem in Black America and America right now. We have this sanitized version of our history and why we are hitting the wall in all these areas. It's not working because we lied about our history. One of the things we lied about is Miss Rosa Parks. And everybody, American history says Rosa Parks was this heroine that came and sat on the bus in Montgomery bus boycott and that she wouldn't give up her seat to a white woman. And that started the Montgomery bus boycott. And the Montgomery bus boycott started the civil rights movement. And the civil rights movement cleanse America of its original sin of slavery, and now everybody in America is happy and it's kumbaya in America, all because Rosa Parks decided to bravely not give up her seat to that white man. All of that is a lie. Rosa Parks, from what I understand, was a plant. But American history loves some Rosa Parks. Let me tell you why Rosa Parks and MLK is so important to the story of America, why they have to maintain the lie. For 200 years almost, America has been called this racist, backward, ignorant, stupid country by the Europeans. I mean, they came to America and they saw slavery. They say, this is a peculiar institution. We going on these plantations, man, and we're seeing these children that are half white and they look just like the master. I mean, 20, 30 of them. Master's out there just getting down with the slave women and having children, and then he's going to put his children on the auction block and sell them. It's crazy. It's crazy down there. It's madness. And all this got back to Europe, and people were looking at America as this backward, crazy nation, and Abraham Lincoln knew it. So in the Civil War, even though the slaves did not ask for nor participate nor have knowledge of their freedom, Abraham Lincoln gave it to them. He said, it's going to do us very good. It's going to do wonders for our public relations worldwide. Well, Jim Crow sat in after they ended slavery. I mean, they did the 13th Amendment, right to vote, 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, 15th Amendment, the right to vote for men. They thought that they may have done it, but no. The white Democrats down south said no. So they brought in Jim Crow, and Jim Crow became an embarrassment to America. But you couldn't get it stopped because of federalism, how the Constitution said that the states control their elections and so much of what went on in their communities. The federal government had very little power. The FBI and the federal police force barely existed back then. So it was like, and every time you tried to pass something in Congress to give the government more power to go down and try to make these southern states treat black people correctly, of course, it'd be vetoed. They can never get it done. So Jim Crow became an embarrassment to the United States of America, an embarrassment. America became known all over this world as a hypocritical nation, as a racist nation. And communism came up, and the communists said, look at America, you people of color all over the world, you Asian people, you African people, you people in the Caribbean. Look at America, you people in India and all over the world. It is a racist nation that hates you because of the color of your skin. And America says, oh my goodness, guys, we are in a quandary here. The communists have taken over China. They've taken over Vietnam. They've taken over North Korea. They are here in Cuba. How are we going to stop this? Well, the first thing they say we got to do is we got to prove to the world that America's not a racist nation. How do we do that, y'all? MLK and Rosa Parks. We do an MLK birthday. We give the black guy a monument in D.C. And whenever they call us a racist nation, we can point to that and say, see, no, we're not. Even though they know King was no good, even though they know he was a communist, a Marxist, a philanderer, because black people has accepted them as their God, and white people say, if that's who you want, that's who you got, because it cleanses us. And it tells the world on the world stage, we are not a racist nation. And America wanted to prove so badly that they were not a racist nation. Look at what they did with Rosa Parks. They made Rosa Parks the first American who had not been a public official to lie in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. Did you hear me? The first person that was not a member of our government to lie in state, a private citizen at the nation's capital, that was Rosa Parks. Why did America do that? As a symbol to the world. Look at us, world. We are no longer that racist backwoods group of ignorant rubes that the Democratic Party was, the Bull Connors of the world. That's not us any longer. Yeah, we assassinated Martin. Yeah, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated here in the United States of America. Yeah, but look at what we've done. This cleanses us of racism all over the world. Now, y'all give us some props for that. So that's why Rosa Parks and this mythology around her is so important. There are songs about her, movies about her, statues about of her. I went to the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, the Civil Rights Museum, where King got shot. There is a statue of Rosa Parks in the hotel, sitting on the bus, looking out the window. They got the whole bus, and they got a little statue of her sitting there looking out the window. You can go in and step aside and get a picture took with it if you want to. Yeah. Iconic. All of it's a lie. Rosa Parks was born in Tuskegee, Alabama. She married Raymond Parks in 1943 and joined the NAACP. Her husband Raymond was an activist. He's a bit of a communist. And ironically, Rosa married him after he took her for a ride in his car. So her husband had a car. Question is, why is she riding the bus and her husband riding the car? Why was she taking that indignity of riding the bus and having given up her seat to white folks when her husband had a car? That's a very good question, isn't it? So Rosa started working she went to a few communist meetings. They make it plain to say, though, she never became a member of the Communist Party, but she did meet Clifford and Virginia Durr. Now, Clifford and Virginia Durr was interesting. She became a maid for them. And they kind of found out she was interested in the Communist Party and, civil rights. And they said, Rosa, how interested are you? Rosa said, I'm very interested. So they said, well, Rosa, we'd like to finance you going to Highlander Folk School. Now, what is Highlander Folk School? It was a communist training camp, even though it didn't call itself that, in Montreal, Tennessee. So Rosa had to leave Alabama and go to Tennessee to Highlander Folk School, a communist training camp. And guess who she met there, y'all? Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Abernathy. Yeah, at the communist training camp. Rosa meets them there. Now, the Durrs were very, very interesting. Virginia and her husband. Mr. Durr was Clifford. Wasn't just your average little Alabama lawyer. No. Clifford Durr was somebody special. Clifford Durr had gotten his law degree from Oxford University in England. Yeah. That man was educated. And he was kicked out of the Truman administration in 1948 for refusing to take part in the loyalty oath. Back then, it wasn't like now. The Supreme Court ruled that you could be a communist after a while, okay? But back then, if they found out you were a communist, they could fire you from your job, they could blackball you, all kind of stuff could happen to you. So in 1948, this is 3 years after World War II. They were demanding that people in the federal government took a loyalty oath to the United States of America and that they weren't communists. Durr said, I'm not going to do it, and he quit. And so he became president of the National Lawyers Guild. Well, the National Lawyers Guild was this group of very, very, very liberal lawyers. And they were extremely liberal on race issues and everything else. And I told you why they were interested in the race issue and integration, because government had to control your identity. Government had to control every aspect of your life. You couldn't have the freedom to say, I'm part of this group or that group or that group or that group. That gave you too much power. The government says, no, you are this. You are part of our people. All of you are the same. You're going to wear the same clothes. You're going to get the same amount of money. You're going to live in the same houses. You're going to drive the same cars. You're going to be the same thing. And you're going to do it because we say so. That was the idea behind communism and Marxism. So Durr was part of this little clique of Marxists that believed in this ideology. So this little communist guild that they got, they defended, communists and all kind of weird people all over America. And the House Un-American Activities accused the Lawyers Guild of being a communist front group. What is a communist front group? A communist front group is a group of communists that call themselves something else and deny that they're communist. That's all it is. We're not communists, but everything they do is communist. Who funds you? Don't worry about it. Communist funds them. They have a communist ideology, but when you ask them about their communists, hell no, we ain't communists. That was a lawyers guild. So they all set this thing up in Montgomery, where Rosa Parks doesn't give up her seat on the bus. It's a plant. It's all set up. Everybody's in place. E.D. Nixon, Montgomery Improvement Society, all of them. Rosa gets arrested. She immediately gets bailed out. The Durrs help her out. Mr. Durr had a whole lot of pull, got Rosa Parks out of jail. And the Montgomery bus boycott is not what stops the segregation on the buses. It was not. Now, did y'all hear what I just told you? Because everybody believed that Rosa Parks sitting on that bus and refusing to get up started the Montgomery bus boycott, and the Montgomery bus boycott, all right, that it stopped the segregation on the buses. That's not true. What stopped the segregation on the buses was a Supreme Court case called Browder versus Gale. Now, Clifford Durr was involved all in this case. He basically did the case. He had a black lawyer there fronting, but Richard Durr basically did the whole thing. And Browder versus Gale was 4 black women. One was Miss Aurelia Browder, Claudette Cloven, Susie McDonald, and Mary Louise Smith. These women went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that you could not separate people on those buses and make black people get up to give white people their seat anymore. Done. It wasn't a Montgomery bus boycott, y'all. Now, history tells you that it was a Montgomery bus boycott. How many of you have heard about Browder versus Gale? You probably heard about it if you heard from me or April Chapman, because April's been talking about it too. Browder versus Gale was a Supreme Court case that killed segregation on buses in Montgomery. It wasn't Rosa Parks. It wasn't Martin Luther King. But the communists had a PR system. And Miss Aurelia Browder, Claudette Cloven, Susie McDonald, and Mary Louise Smith did not. And they told the press there was Martin Luther King Jr. and the Montgomery bus boycott and Rosa Parks that started all of this, and they became national heroes. Matter of fact, MLK went to the White House with Eisenhower and Nixon. He became the guy after that. It was all a lie. She was a plant. She was a plant. Now, how do you feel about being lied to? Well, most of you don't care. Well, I don't care. I don't care. You know? Again, why is this important? It's important so America understands its real history. Could you understand anything about Black America and white America if we didn't know about the Civil War? Where all of this racial strife and there, if we didn't know anything about slavery, where the racial strife and everything comes from. If we didn't know about the American Revolution, how we fought against the British for our freedom. All of these things, we would be like, why are we the way that we are? Why do we speak the language that we speak? Why do we do the things that we do? These help to explain it all. So if we have been lied to about the American Revolution, or we were captives of spaceships from Mars, and the Martians and their benevolence gave us our freedom, we'd be so jacked up now we wouldn't know what to do, because our history would be sanitized and a lie. The reason Black people are in such bad shape right now is because their history has been sanitized and it is a lie. That's all it is to it. I'm here trying to get you to understand. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, all these cats in the civil rights movement, Abernathy, Andrew Young, all of them were plants by the Communist Party. Stanley Levinson wasn't involved with Montgomery bus boycott, but all of them had come from the Highlander Folk School, which was a communist training camp in Montreal, Tennessee. And a matter of fact, Tennessee closed that sucker down, took his charter and everything because they were just putting out communists, causing hell, raising hell all over America. Y'all, that's the truth. I know the truth is hard to handle. I know it's difficult. I know Rosa Parks has been a hero to the United States of America for a long time. I think that she can be a hero to the left because she did help cause the communist revolution in the United States of America. I mean, the Black community, because the Black community now is basically a communist community in a third world community and a first world community. We have, dictator worship, apostate religion, government control, terrible education, crime, substance abuse. So yeah, I think she should be celebrated by the Marxists and the communists, as Dr. King is. But true blue American, no. We need to see them as they are, even if our federal government still wants to gaslight the world and tell them that, look at this. We are not racist because of the King Monument and because we celebrate Rosa Parks. That's the reason why they do this, y'all. Not because they don't know the history. They know the history. But these people are a means to an end for them. A means to an end. We have to recognize that and understand that we're not going to be gaslit anymore. We're not going to be lied to anymore. We're going to tell the truth, and the truth will make you free. Don't get mad at me for telling you the truth. Applaud it. Because now you're not lost. Now you can find your way. Now you can go to safe harbor. The road map, the fake one has been torn up, and now the true one is in front of you. Follow it. And what it will take you to is a belief in Christ, a belief in the Constitution, a belief in America, and all of this fairy tale foolishness, throw it in the fireplace. I'm not going to let you rest. I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not, because I'm here to wake you up. Hope I did you some good today. So join me tomorrow for another.
This is Jamal Bryant. He went viral over the weekend, and people are saying he went on this racist rant during his church ceremony, telling people about something with MAGA and white supremacy. So just take a listen.
Come on, Public Enemy. I came to tell white supremacists. I came to tell MAGA. I came to tell white privilege. We coming, we coming, we coming. We coming, we coming. God said, when you give me glory, I'm going to run them out of the State Department. If you give me glory, I'm going to run them out of Congress and run them out of Senate. If you give me glory, I'm going to run them off of your job and run them off of your classroom. I need you to take your neighbor's hand and say, neighbor, we got to shout like we got faith. Come on, Public Enemy. I can't.
So what he said, wait, let me play this one more time.
I came to tell white supremacists. I came to tell MAGA. I came to tell white privilege. We coming, we coming, we coming.
Okay, so he wants to tell MAGA and white privilege and white supremacy that he's coming, that they're coming.
You see those little funny looking boys jumping around in front of the pulpit that are an abomination to the gospel. That's what he wants to promote, taking over the public schools as they were, not somebody trying to straighten it out. So he's being of the works of the devil. So look at him. That's what you get.
So why are they coming after MAGA people? So I guess they're assuming that all MAGA people are supposed to be racist.
Well, see, that's what they do when they start doing that in the churches. Why are they coming after a significant number of black folk? Remember, 17% average black men went for Trump and MAGA. So who's he talking about? That's why he doesn't have anything except those little sweet looking boys bouncing around in his church and a bunch of lonely looking women.
So here's the thing, they're quick to say white supremacy, but it's like, okay, there is no white people controlling where you live at. So why is it that the community is still poverty stricken and high crime? And you, as a church with a very large congregation, right? You're not
because of the likes of him.
Right. They're not creating any programs or resources to help with that.
They're pacifying black folk and redirecting their attention to some kind of nebulous devil instead of to what they ought to be concentrating on. That's been the job of black preachers for the last several hundred years in this country and around the world too. But some of them don't follow that pattern, thank goodness. But this one does. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Illustrating white supremacy. Why doesn't he start preaching to his congregation about you can take charge, have the courage to speak up and tell your representatives to be honest and forthright with you? Why doesn't he say that? That would be a lot better for the cause than what he's saying, which is just Negro given special privileges for keeping the rest of the Negroes obedient
to the Democrat Party.
The old party of the old slave masters who are experts in the art of controlling Negroes and practicing on Negroes for a couple of 100 years. They learned the art pretty well, and now they're trying to practice on a lot of white people, yellow people, red people, and brown people as well. But the American public said, hell no, you're going to hell. So go see the devil on your own. Don't try to take us with you. We want things returned to normalcy.
But there's still a lot of black people who subscribe to that.
Yeah. There were a few black folk who escaped from slavery, and a lot of them remain slaves.
Right.
So what else is new?
Well,
the ones whose ancestors escaped don't think like that. The ones whose ancestors stayed, a lot of them do think like that.
I mean, let me ask you a quick opinion on because I see our guest, on the state of the black church.
Pathetic. They've been taken over by pulpit pimps, not those who deliver a message. They won't talk about sin. They just talk about belief. Some folk think they give to heaven by doing good deeds. All you got to do is believe. You can be a pimp, a hoe, a drug dealer, a murderer, or a thief. But if you have belief, you'll see the pearly gates. So many of them preach that. I told the preacher about themselves a couple of years ago. Judge Brown, if you start preaching against sin, you won't have anybody in the congregation and there'll be no money in the collection plate. I said, well, then close down. Your duty is to preach salvation through righteousness, not trying to deal with hustling folk. So close yourself down. You don't deserve to be open.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, all right. So you know what? Let's stick in Georgia because this church, that New Birth Baptist Church, is in I think it's in Atlanta, around in that area. So
this one that we just heard.
Yeah, Pastor Jamar Bryant, he took over the New Birth Baptist Church.
And why would I know the New Birth?
Well, I don't think you would personally know it, but it's a very well-known church, a very large congregation, And I forgot the other pastor name. He ended up dying, and it was a rumor. Allegedly, he died of AIDS because he was
That's too typical.
Eddie Long. That was his Bishop Eddie Long. He he used to be the head preacher.
That's why they got all them little funny looking folk prancing around up there around the pulpit, all spastically.
Appreciate it, though.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that church has a lot of drama.
The black church, most of the big ones, they're not doing what they ought to do. Like King's old church, right across the street, is one of the most disgraceful areas in America. And not only is the preacher looking at it every time he leaves services, which is seldom these days, since he's also sitting up in Congress. Senator, what's his name?
Warnock.
What's his name?
Warnock.
What's his name?
I'm not going to keep saying his name.
He wants you to say his name. Just say it thinking of it as the devil incarnate.
Yeah. All right.
He has actual opportunity, capacity, and authority to do something about that pestilence right across the street from him that has besmirched so many people, and that he has done nothing. He needs to be stripped of his authority to wear ecclesiastical robes and declared the pulpit pimp that he is.
Inventions have been suppressed.
Not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said.
A centuries-long coordinated effort to make everyone believe that this one nation did not have the ability to create.
They said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt.
The same people who invented writing and who invented our base 10 number system happen to be the same people who invented the wheel, sailboats, wrote the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Pythagoras spent 15 years in Egypt.
And also gave us rock and roll, electronic music, folding chairs, gas masks, the super soaker, and without whom the internet wouldn't exist.
He probably had to spend 5 years convincing them that he was worthy to get the knowledge that they had.
They happen to be the same people who the Bible talks about, from Adam to the true figure on which the story of Yeshua is based. The same people drawn on old authentic statues of Buddha all over Asia. The same people who kick-started the mother culture in Mesoamerica. So much so that the people there built stone statues of their god kings. But when we take a critical look at the true achievements of the black man, we cannot but put in question the narrative that many have for so long tried to inject into our curriculums and history books. Because if any one of those inventions come from black people, even one, then the whole argument against the black man fails. One could not justify the mistreatment of another human being without first removing his or her humanity. And thus, so began the long march towards denying or hiding the achievements of the black man, a lie initially put in place for economical reasons. Maintained because of dependency and fear, now the lie has become generational inherited knowledge. And for too many, it has become a psychological prison where the daughters and sons of Imhotep have forgotten their true potential and have been made to believe that only their body and not their minds are worthy of the status of Amun, inventors by excellence. Philosophy. I know. I can hear it from here. The Greeks invented philosophy, and Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato were the fathers of this science. And yet ancient Greek historians and writers, such as Plato and Plutarch, often reference the black Africans in Egypt as the source of wisdom and knowledge, and it was common in Greek culture to attribute philosophical and scientific knowledge to Egyptian origins. In fact, in his book Stolen Legacy, author George G.M. James in 1954 clearly shows that much of what is attributed to Greek philosophy and science was actually derived from ancient Egyptian knowledge. James, a Guyanese-born historian and professor, showed that the Greeks borrowed heavily from Egyptian philosophy, spirituality, and science, particularly during and after their interactions with Egypt. Or yet again when he reaffirms, quote, "Finally, the dishonesty in the movement of the publication of a Greek philosophy becomes very glaring when we refer to the fact, purposely, that by calling the theorem of the square on the hypotenuse, the Pythagorean theorem, it has concealed the truth for centuries from the world, who ought to know that the Egyptians taught Pythagoras and the Greeks what mathematics they knew." End quote. To quote Giotto Dezzi, Egyptian wisdom was highly respected by Greeks. For them, a visit to Egypt and the possibility of studying with the Egyptian priests was the equivalent to a PhD in Oxford for us. So, the scholars that could afford a trip there, and the fare was expensive, did not hesitate to fulfill it. End quote. But like many, I am sure you were unaware that the Greek sciences really originated from the Africans, and that from Plato to Pythagoras, from Solon to Democritus, all the great Greek thinkers studied in Egypt with the Nubio-Kemetic priests. Natural gas heater and HVAC systems. Alice H. Parker. No, not this Alice H. Parker whose picture you often see online associated with this invention, but this one, the real Alice Parker, born in 1895 in Morristown, New Jersey. In 1919, she patented a design for a natural gas-fueled central heating system, a pioneering concept at the time. Before Parker's innovation, homes were primarily heated using wood or coal in fireplaces or stoves, methods that were labor-intensive and posed safety risks. Parker's system proposed using natural gas to heat air, which would then be distributed through ducts to various rooms, allowing for more efficient and controlled heating. Thomas Elkins was an African-American inventor, dentist, abolitionist, surgeon, and pharmacist based in Albany, New York. He is notable for his contributions to refrigeration technology, particularly his 1879 patent for an improved refrigerating apparatus. This invention was designed to prevent the decay of food and meat, enhancing preservation methods of the time. In addition to his work in refrigeration, Elkins patented improvements to the chamber commode, a precursor to the modern toilet, integrating features like a bureau, mirror, book rack, washstand, table, easy chair, and earth closet or chamber stool. He also developed a multifunctional piece of furniture that combined a dining table, ironing table, and quilting frame. The electric microphone. Dr. James E. West is a distinguished American inventor and acoustics expert, best known for inventing the electret microphone in 1962 while working at Bell Laboratories. West developed this innovative microphone, which uses a thin, permanently charged polymer to capture sound and convert it into an electrical signal with high fidelity. Today, electret microphones are used in almost every device that requires sound recording, including telephones, hearing aids, smartphones, and various other communication devices. Caesarean C-section. Did you know that Europeans learned surgery and C-section from pre-colonial Africans? In the 1800s, Africans were performing cesarean sections with a very high success rate and survivability rate for mom and baby. In 1879, Dr. R. Bert W. Felkin, was in surprise and awe when he witnessed Africans from the Bunyoro-Katara kingdom perform a successful C-section on a young woman. The African surgeons used iron needles and knives as instruments. These were sterilized with fire. They also used a variation of banana wine to sedate the pregnant woman. However, she was conscious throughout the procedure. A protective paste was applied over the wound, and pins were placed on the wound to seal it. The patient was reported to utter no cry during the whole procedure, and an hour after the procedure, she was quite comfortable and holding her newborn. 11 days after the procedure, the wound was entirely healed. This was promptly shared in the European Medical Society. The degree of knowledge, sophistication required to perform such a procedure clearly points to a long-standing and evolved tradition. From the innovation of the operation to the healing paste, sedating agent, wound closing strips, needles, understanding of anatomy, and more. Medieval Africa continues to surprise us. Supercomputing and Internet. Philip Emeagwali, born on August 23, 1954, in Akure, Nigeria, is a renowned computer scientist and engineer whose work has significantly influenced the development of supercomputing and the Internet. By many, he's considered the father of the Internet. Although the Internet cannot be attributed to a single inventor, Philip Emeagwali was certainly one of those to whom we can attribute key advancing inventions, without which the Internet wouldn't exist. In the 1980s, while working on oil reservoir simulations, Emeagwali conceptualized the use of parallel processing, a method of using multiple processors simultaneously to solve complex computations. He programmed a connection machine comprising over 65,000 processors to perform 3.1 billion calculations per second, surpassing the capabilities of existing supercomputers at that time. This achievement earned him the 1989 Gordon Bell Prize, often regarded as the Nobel Prize of supercomputing. Medicine and surgery. The earliest known written record of surgery comes from ancient Egypt, around 1500 BCE, with the Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient medical text. This document describes various surgical practices, particularly trauma surgery, and outlines procedures for treating fractures, wounds, and dislocations. Ancient Egyptian surgeons were surprisingly advanced in their techniques, often using sutures, bandages, and anesthesia with herbal preparations. In fact, the science of medicine itself was invented by none other than Imhotep, and then the Greeks inherited it. The Nubio-Kemetic civilization had an equivalent to the Hippocratic Oath 1,500 years before the Greeks, known as the Ebers Papyrus Oath, sometimes referred to as the Oath of Imhotep. This oath is found in the Ebers Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical text dating to around 1550 BCE, which is among the oldest known medical documents. The Ebers Papyrus outlines ethical guidelines for physicians, encouraging them to follow principles such as doing no harm, respecting patients, and using their knowledge solely for healing purposes. NASA's X-ray spectrometer. Nuclear shielding during the development of the atomic bomb, Dr. J. Ernest Wilkins, Jr., a mathematician and nuclear scientist who worked on the Manhattan Project during World War II. Wilkins was a prodigy, entering the University of Chicago at age 13, and later making groundbreaking contributions to reactor physics and neutron absorption, particularly in shielding design for nuclear reactors. His work remains influential in nuclear engineering, and he is celebrated for his contributions to advancing nuclear science. Light bulb. By the way, everywhere you look, it is claimed that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Well, when one looks deeper, one can see that it was actually Lewis Latimer, an African-American genius who pretty much turned the light bulb from a party trick into a usable item. His invention of a carbon filament revolutionized electric lighting by making it more practical, durable, and affordable. Before his innovation, light bulbs used filaments that were fragile and burned out quickly, which limited their use and appeal. Latimer's breakthrough came in 1881 when he patented his process for creating a carbon filament that could endure higher temperatures and burn for much longer periods without degrading. This improvement allowed electric lighting to become widely adopted in homes, streets, and workplaces, transforming how people lived and worked after dark. Edison was the financier that helped commercialize this invention. Gas masks and traffic signals. If you search for the inventor of the gas mask and traffic signals, you will often find pages portraying the inventor like this. And yet, the modern gas mask was greatly improved by black inventor Garrett Morgan, who patented his safety hood and smoke protector in 1914. Morgan's device featured a hood to protect the wearer's head and a long tube system that brought in fresh air from close to the ground, where there was less smoke and gas. This was revolutionary in protecting people from toxic gases and smoke, especially useful for firefighters and later adapted for soldiers during World War I. His invention's effectiveness became widely recognized when he used it to save workers trapped in a tunnel beneath Lake Erie after a deadly explosion, earning him national acclaim. Beyond gas masks, Morgan was also known for his work on other safety innovations, such as the traffic signal. His inventions were driven by a desire to improve public safety, even as he faced significant racial discrimination. First industrial production technique. In the 3rd century BC, the black Africans from Carthage were the first to use industrial building techniques. They were so fast that they could build 200 warships in a month. When the Romans were able to capture one of the Carthaginian ships, they realized that each of the parts were labeled. This meant that the parts were manufactured separately and assembled using assembly techniques that were used during the 20th century. And yes, the Carthaginians were black. We have covered all the evidence in prior videos. To pull this off, Carthage would have needed to have a very high level of coordination, expertise, and engineering at many levels. Adinkra codes, the code on which the universe runs. One of the most influential astrophysicists in the last century is Dr. James Gate, and his equally impactful discovery of the Adinkra codes that are postulated to govern the behavior of all particles in the universe. This is key in our understanding of subatomic particle behaviors. Writing and paper. It has been repeated online so many times that the Sumerians were the first civilization and that they invented writing, so much so that many no longer even question that statement. And yet Dr. Gunter Dreyer has clearly shown that centuries before the Sumerians started writing, the people of the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex, known today as ancient Egypt, that these people invented writing. Not only that, it has been shown that cuneiform clearly derives from the African hieroglyphics, as you can see from this table. The first known hieroglyphs discovered in the tomb of King Scorpion, the first, date back to around 3200 BCE. These early symbols, found on small ivory tags and pottery fragments, represent some of the earliest evidence of writing in ancient Egypt and are believed to have been used for administrative purposes, possibly to mark goods and denote ownership or origins. And from there, the invention of writing starts to spread out throughout the world. A few centuries later, Sumerian writing, the cuneiform, starts to appear. Oh, by the way, both ancient Egypt and early Sumer were black African civilizations. We have many videos already covering that fact, but here are 2 videos if you want to go over the evidence. There is also clear evidence that all major writing systems today are clearly derived from the Nubio-Kemetic hieroglyphics. From Kanji, the Chinese and Eastern writing system, to the Mesoamerican hieroglyph, which derives from the Olmec mother culture, itself a copy-paste of Kemetic culture. But it wasn't just the letters in the writing system that were copied worldwide. Home security system. Marie Van Britten Brown was an African-American nurse who, in 1966, invented the first home security system. Living in Queens, New York, she often worked late hours and felt unsafe due to rising crime rates and slow police response times. To enhance her security, she devised a system featuring a motorized camera that could slide between peepholes on her door, allowing her to view visitors of different heights. This camera transmitted images to a monitor inside her home, enabling her to see who was at the door without opening it. The system also included a two-way microphone for communication and a panic button to alert authorities. In 1969, she and her husband, Albert Brown, an electronics technician, were granted U.S. Patent 3,482,037 for this innovative design. Brown's invention laid the groundwork for modern home security systems, incorporating elements like video surveillance, remote-controlled door locks, and two-way communication. Ten-based number system. If we want to go back to the earliest mathematicians, we have to go back to 30,000 BC, when the Ashango bone from Central Africa was etched with clear signs of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and prime number relationships that we only rediscovered recently. But fast forward to 2500 BC, and already the Africans were the first to officialize the science of mathematics. And they were extremely good at it. So much so that even their students were learning advanced geometry concepts, as shown in the Moscow Papyrus and the Rhind Papyrus. The Narmer palette, which marks the beginning of dynastic Egypt, already had clear number markings. These eventually evolved into the decimal system used by the Egyptians for the rest of their 3,000-year reign. And this 10-based system, this way of counting from 0 to 10, will then spread out and be found all over the globe. Literally. And it followed the same expansion as that of writing. 10-based number system in China, showing up 1,000 years after the Africans. 10-based number system in India. 10-based number system for the Phoenicians and the Greeks. 10-based number system for African civilization infra-Sahara. 10-based number system for the Islamic Empire. 10-based number system for the Olmecs, the mother culture in Mesoamerica. On and on and on. And all these systems appear after the people of the Nubio-Kemetic civilization perfected the base 10 number system. And it isn't the fact that other models weren't tried, but the two best-based system, the 10-based, and the Sumerian 60-based system, from which we get the 60-minute hour and the 60-second minute. All these systems come from Black Africans. And this standard for counting also enabled the Black African to create multiple other standards. Lipstick, makeup, and perfume. Lipstick's earliest recorded use is in early Mesopotamia in 3500 BC, and in Kemet, its use broadened. It was worn to signify status, but the Kemetu believed that it would bring magical powers. But the Egyptians were among the first to use cosmetics and perfumes. As early as 10,000 BCE, both men and women used scented oils and ointments to clean and soften the skin and to mask body odor, and dyes and paints to color it. They rouged their lips and cheeks, stained their nails with henna, and lined their eyes and eyebrows heavily with kohl, a dark-colored powder made variously of crushed antimony, burnt almonds, lead, oxidized copper, ochre, ash, malachite, and chrysocolla, a blue-green copper ore. Such measures were intended not only to be aesthetically pleasing, but also to protect the wearer from the heat of the sun and the dust of the desert. Myrrh, thyme, marjoram, chamomile, lavender, lily, peppermint, rosemary, cedar, Rose, aloe, olive oil, sesame oil, and almond oil provided the basic ingredients of most perfumes, which were important in religious rituals and in the process of embalming the dead. Police. The first recorded police force was in the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex and dates back to the Middle Kingdom, circa 2050 to 1800 BCE. This early police force was organized to maintain order and protect property, including temples and royal tombs. They were typically composed of soldiers and foreign mercenaries, and Nubians. They were often armed with staffs, trained dogs, and trained monkeys. Police duties included guarding public spaces, overseeing market activities, and escorting officials and important figures. The ancient Egyptian police were supported by a network of local officials who helped enforce laws throughout the kingdom. It's not until the 9th century, when the Arab general of Al-Mu'tasim picked up the concept from the locals and further perfected it into the centralized police force we know today. Dry cleaning. In 1821, Thomas L. Jennings became the first black person to receive a patent in the United States for his invention of a dry cleaning process known as dry scouring. This invention brought him considerable financial success, which he channeled into supporting his fellow African Americans. Algebra. In the 9th century, the Persian mathematician Al-Khwarizmi perfected the general rules of algebra that we use today by combining knowledge that he found in older Greek texts and ancient Egyptian texts. And yet, all the way back in 1500 BC, a full 1,000 years before the Greeks even understood the concept of abstraction, the black Africans from the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex had already found a method to, number one, isolate a variable, and number two, devise a way to figure out the value for that unknown variable. Algebra. In the 9th century, the Persian mathematician Al-Khwarizmi perfected the general rules of algebra that we use today by combining knowledge that he found in older Greek texts and ancient Egyptian texts. And yet, all the way back in 1500 BC, a full 1,000 years before the Greeks even understood the concept of abstraction, the black Africans from the Nubio-Kemetic civilization complex had already found a method to, number one, isolate a variable, and number two, devise a way to figure out the value for that unknown variable. In sum, the ancient Egyptians had a working method of solving equations. Their method is called the method of false position. After isolating the variable you are looking for, you assign it a random value. That value is then used to see if it fits the problem. If it fails, we try to determine by how much we are off and use the difference to adjust our original assumption. This method was put on full display in the Rhind papyrus. In doing so, the Egyptians also formalized the concept of a variable. This is a very important concept of abstraction in mathematics and computer science, as it assigns a symbolic placeholder for a value by giving it a name. Kemetu would call it a heap or aha. Today, more often than not, we call it X. Spark plug. Edmund Berger is often credited with inventing an early form of the spark plug on February 2, 1839. Today, if you Google the inventor of the spark plug, you will see that it is attributed to Gottlob Honnold, who is credited for the first commercially viable spark plug. Note that semantics of the sorts are often used to disregard black inventors. Architecture and cement. From the most enigmatic monuments on Earth, like the Osirian and the Sphinx, to off-limit monuments such as the Serapeum at Saqqara and the Valley of the Kings, the Africans from the could plan and design monuments so enduring with such precision that it reflected their mastery of mathematics, architecture, and material science. all the way back in 2600 BC when the pyramids were built, but even earlier when the tombs of the pre-dynastic kings, like the Scorpion kings, were built. They were also built out of cement, with a compound that they called arecat, a mixture that when solidified and dried is indistinguishable from stone, and they transmitted this knowledge to many subsequent civilizations. Laser cataract surgery. Dr. Patricia Era Bath was a pioneering American ophthalmologist, inventor, and humanitarian. She made significant contributions to the field of ophthalmology, notably inventing the laser phaco probe, a device that revolutionized cataract surgery by using laser technology to remove cataracts more precisely and less invasively. In 1988, she became the first African-American woman physician to receive a medical patent in the United States for this invention. Binary code. Yes, the same system of calculation that your computer uses was invented by none other than Black Africans in 2500 BC. The Kemetu had realized the practicality of binary calculation and incorporated it into their arithmetic. So even though they had a base 10 number system, they had a binary way of adding and multiplying. This one still baffles me. Was there another reason other than practicality that explains why the Kemetu chose to calculate that way? Did they have an early version of a calculator? Maybe a mechanical one, like the abacus, that didn't survive the test of time. Potato chips. George Crumb is credited with inventing the potato chip in 1853. Working as a cook at Moon's Lake House in Saratoga Springs, New York, Crumb reportedly created the snack after a customer repeatedly complained that his fried potatoes were too thick. Crumb proceeded to slice the potatoes as thin as possible, fried them to a crisp, and seasoned them with salt. They became an instant success, and the customers loved them. The dish quickly became popular. Originally known as Saratoga chips, Crumb's invention gained widespread appeal, eventually becoming a staple snack in America and around the world. Law. The invention of law in ancient Egypt dates back to the early dynastic period around 3000 BCE, as Egypt was unified under the first pharaohs. Egyptian law was deeply connected to Ma'at, the concept of truth, balance, and cosmic order, personified by the goddess Ma'at. Pharaohs were seen as the ultimate authority and enforcers of Ma'at, responsible for ensuring justice and harmony in the kingdom. The Kemetu developed a well-organized system of legal principles, procedures, and courts to manage disputes, property rights, contracts, and punishments for crimes. Judges, often priests or high-ranking officials, administered justice on behalf of the pharaoh and were guided by the ideals of fairness and balance. The vizier, the highest official under the pharaoh, served as the chief judge and overseer of the legal system. Gamma electric cell. Henry Thomas Sampson Jr. was an American inventor known for creating the gamma electric cell, a device with the main goal of generating auxiliary power from the shielding of a nuclear reactor. Henry T. Sampson is the first African American to earn a PhD in nuclear engineering in the United States. He is best known for inventing the gamma electric cell in 1971. Encryption. The first known use of encryption in history dates back to ancient Egypt around 1900 BCE. Egyptian scribes used a form of encryption to protect important secrets, particularly in tomb inscriptions and sacred texts. These early encryptions involve simple substitution ciphers, where symbols or uncommon hieroglyphs replace standard ones, concealing the actual meaning from casual readers. Later, more structured encryption methods appeared in Mesopotamia and ancient Greece. Keys and locks. Here too you will often hear this invention being attributed to Greeks and medieval Europeans, and yet the black Africans from the Nubio-Kemetic civilization and Sumer were already using keys and locks, thousands of years before they Greeks adopted them. Toothpaste. Even toothpaste was invented by black Africans. The invention of toothpaste dates back to ancient civilizations, with the earliest known formulas used by the ancient Egyptian around 5000 BCE. They developed a powder made from ingredients like crushed eggshells, pumice, and the ashes of ox hooves, which they mixed with water to clean their teeth. This early toothpaste helped remove debris and improve breath, despite lacking the minty freshness we associate with modern formulas. And the list goes on and on and on. Black people invented dams, fortresses, horse saddle, denture and dentistry, zoos, military organization, catapults. Black people in Kemet invented women hygienic cloths and even the first pregnancy test. Oh, by the way, the facial traits of the statues in Göbekli Tepe clearly show people with black phenotypes. Look at the nose and lips. This is not surprising to us, as we already know that the Natufians, those who first discovered agriculture, that the Natufians were black, and that the Natufians were almost certainly behind the building of Göbekli Tepe. We have videos on this. Black Africans invented calendars. Their early Nubio-Kemetic calendar had 365 days and was copied from the Greeks to the Roman and many other civilizations. Columns and pylons, cavettos, lever, large-scale buildings, gardens, corbel arch, tapestry, synthetic pigmentation. Olympic Games. It was called Hebsed. The Greeks copied it and renamed it the Olympic Games. Many of the sports we have today, including bowling, hockey, handball, gymnastic, weightlifting, high jump, fencing, wrestling, marathon, and so many more. The plow, the sailboat, lunar calendar, timekeeping, including the sexagesimal system, beer brewing. Organized religion. Pretty much all the stories in the Old Testament exist in almost identical forms on the temple walls of Kemet, from the story of the flood to the virgin birth and the miracles to turn water to wine and multiplication of bread and fish. Schools, taxation, foie gras, biscuits, cheese, umbrellas, hairpin shirt, hair gel, gloves, flip-flops, hair extensions, hair dye, wine. Yes, wine was also invented by black people. So, if black people invented so much and pretty much single-handedly invented the key elements of civilization, why is it that they are not at the forefront of science and innovation today? First and foremost, it is because their achievements have been and continue to be suppressed and reattributed. And there is a clear pattern of this. If you are not actively seeking this type of knowledge, it is never celebrated in media. This contributes to an image where black people are only good for sports and music, and many of our kids grow up to believe this lie.
Jumbo on this one.
Coffee. Follow me.